Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in this today's video, we are going to master NGRX. So state management in Angular doesn't have to be a headache anymore. So if you have ever struggled with passing data across your multiple components and you wanted to make sure that everything is in sync with your backend, then this video is exactly for you guys. So this video covers about NGRX state management in Angular, and we aren't just covering the theory part. So we are building a production grade kind of an application, and that will be built from scratch by using latest version of Angular, which is version 21. So before we jump into the code directly, so let's first discuss about what stack we are going to use. So obviously we are using Angular first, and the second important part here is the NGRX state management. So we are using NGRX. For the backend, we are going to make use of fake store API, as you can see here. So if we can go on the read doc, so here you can find there are some APIs already provided. So we are not gonna go and build the backend from scratch. We are going to leverage all these APIs provided by this fake store.com. And also in the front end, we are going to make use of the latest signal forms, which is experimental at the moment, and by using that form we are going to build our login, and also we are going to see how we can add a new user by creating a register API. So in this video we are going to talk more about what are actions, what are features, and what are effects. And you must be wondering why I haven't mentioned about reducers and selectors, because these two things are now clubbed with something called as features, which is one of the new thing which is provided by NGRX. So whatever I will be teaching you guys today, everything is latest. And let me show you exactly what we are going to build in this video. So here if you see, right, we have a kind of a dashboard page, you can say, where we have the list of product, where we are showing all this thing which is coming from the API itself. And let me start things off by doing the logout, so that I can show you that we have this page created, which is for sign in, and we also have a register page which looks something like. And to build this particular form, we are going to use Angular's new signal form, which is experimental, but you know, right, it is here to stay, right? So we can see like in upcoming versions it can also get stable, because I am just loving it. So let me start things by actually signing in here. So if you sign in, so you need to wait some time, and here you can see, right, you just got a pop-up on the right hand side which tells that hey, your login was success. And things get started from your header, where we have this title of our product, we have a logout button, profile button, and we have this card button, which is very important for our project. And if you come in the middle, there you can find all the product card which have this add to cart button, and the moment you click on this, the whole things happens from here. Whenever you click on this button, so there is an action gets executed. So if you click on this add to cart, here you can see, right, we got one item added here in this cart. And just in case if you remember, right, I have took something similar video already, because that video covers all the beginner level understanding of how Redux pattern works in Angular. So basically I'm talking about these two videos, what you can find on my YouTube channel here. So we have Angular state management NGRX, and we also had this NGRX effect tutorial. So whatever you see these two videos, right, this was mostly for beginner friendly guys, like who are just starting with NGRX. And this video is going to be something which I will be teaching you NGRX by actually building a project, which is what I was just trying to show you. So here, this is what I was talking about. So whenever you click on this, action gets executed and something gets added in your cart. If I again click on this button, so can you see the item gets increased to 3. If I again click the same thing, it has increased to 4. Now the main magic here, if you go in the cart component, so here you can find that hey, only 2 product is there, but I press that 3 times, so I can see the quantity is 3, and everything what you see here, everything seems to be in sync. Like let's take a look at this prices what we have, quantity what we show here, even the price, like the subtotal what I have, the total here, and the item count what you see here, which is 4. And even if you see on the cart, right, the badge what I have, it is also 4. And if I increase the quantity, can you see this gets changed, the subtotal gets changed, and the total price also gets changed along with this number. So as you can see here, everything seems to be in sync. Now just in case that you have added this product or like accidentally, so you can click on this delete button and you will see the magic in the state. As if I delete this, everything came to like hey, everything gets calculated, and the UI is always sync everywhere. Like this is my header, this is my order summary, and this is my shopping, and all of this component are in sync to basically load my correct data there. And now if I again go back to this, and I can start adding more product, and I can again go back, I can see the quantity is being increased again. And just in case that you are not happy and you want to get rid of all the cards, so you can click on this clear card, and the moment you click this, everything will get cleared and you have this component which basically shows that your cart is empty, and if you want to shop more you can continue shopping. And also if you see, we have this profile section there, and again this profile section, I'm making use of this API which is get a single user, and based on that user ID who has logged in, I'm able to fetch the record and I'm able to show it over here. So here you can find the email, phone, username, the address the user what had, and also his name and the username. Right now let me also show one more small part what I have here, which is the search product. Okay, so just in case if you want to do some search, like hey, I'm looking for something in ring, so you can search about a ring here and you can basically do add to cart. For example, you type something wrong and there is no product found, so you can show it to the user that hey, there is no product found for this particular, right? So this is what also we are going to implement, and we will see how all of this can be done with NGRX State Management. So by the end of this video, you will have a solid architecture you can use in your own enterprise project. Okay, if you are ready to level up your Angular skills, open up your terminal and let's start coding. So before I start, let's first try to see what version of Angular am I using. So to check the version, we say ng-version, and here you can see that I have version 21.0.2. and if you want to get the latest version, you can just type npm install -g for global and angular/cli@latest to get this latest version of Angular. So once you confirm that you are on version 21, because that is important, because we will be using Angular signal forms and that was released in version 21. So let's go ahead and try to create our new app with the command called ng-new, and let's give the name as NGRX store. So here if you see, with the latest version of 21, we get option to directly go and configure Tailwind CSS. Let's select the Tailwind CSS from here, and I'm not gonna use SSG, so I will say no. And the good thing here is right now you also get option to choose your AI tools. Like for example, I will be using GitHub Copilot with Visual Studio Code, so I will be selecting this option and I will deselect none here, and I'll just choose one option for now. And just in case if you are using Cursor, if you are using Gemini, if you're using Windsurf, you can choose all those options and press enter. Now it is going to install all the packages for me, and once the project is ready, I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code. So I see everything is installed, and now you can go in your folder, and all I need to do is just say code and dot, and this is going to open my Visual Studio Code. So here just to confirm things that what version we are on. So we are using version 21 of Angular, which is a great thing. And also if you take a look that in the dev dependencies, we also have this Tailwind here already added, and we also have a new support for testing, which we are not going to cover, which is vtest. But maybe we can talk about this in our upcoming videos, where maybe I can show you more about Angular unit testing by using this project. So if you will be interested on that, so do let me know in the comment section. So now let me open up my SRC folder and let's see what we have here. So in the app, can you see now we have a new naming convention of the app, basically not the app but all the files. So we don't have any more suffix called app.component or component.spec or component.html. So everything looks more clean now, and we are going to follow the same folder structure and something similar fine naming convention what Angular has recommended to us going forward. Now let's define our folder structure, like what we are going to follow in this video. So first thing first, I always have this core folder, and inside that I make use of page based components. So I will be creating here a folder called as pages, and there will be one more which is going to be my shared folder. So inside this core, I might create my core components, for example header and footer. So I consider them as my core components. Then I will create another folder which is going to be my maybe guards, what I will be using, and maybe in future if we need more, so we will be creating them down the line. Okay, and talking about the shared will also have some components. So let me also add the components folder, and it might also have some services, and this will also have a store. So let me also add a store folder here. Okay, now talking about the pages, so we need to first define what all pages we might expect. So there is a login page, there is a register page, then there is going to be a products page, and the last one, it is going to be a cart page, and I think I'm missing one more, which is my profile page. So let me first go ahead and create all those folders, and we will see how we will create the components down the line. So for the pages, let me have the first page called as login, the register, profile page, the products page, and the most important one, the cart page. And this is how the page, or I would say the folder structure will look like for us. So we have a core which have these two, we have pages which have all this, and the shared which has all of this thing. Now let me go ahead and create all our page components and configure the routing real quick. So I most of the time go ahead and create all my components manually. So I'm not using the CLI way to create the components, but just in case if you want to do that, that also you can do. Maybe I can show you the command. So the command to create those components are very simple. So you just go inside your the folder where you want to create. So once you're in that folder, you just have to say ng G for generate, C for component, and the component name you can give, like for example I want to give it as test. I'll say no, this always asks for the first time. So yeah, can you see I got my component created, and you can see it has all the necessary files what is required. But what I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna use a single file component, which means I will just have one component. Inside that I will be having my template code and my CSS code. Also to let you know that as we are using Tailwind, so there is a very less chance that I will be having a CSS code in my component. So let me first go ahead and delete this, and let me basically show you what I'm basically talking about. So let's go here and create your component called as login.ts. So I'm not using .component suffix anymore. So this is my file, and inside that I can just say export class. This is going to be my login component, and this is just a normal TypeScript class. To make this component, we have something called as component decorator. Okay, and inside this decorator we have a selector, we have a template, and that's all. So in the selector we can give this a name as app-login, and we are not going to use template URL, rather we will use just template, and we can have this to backtick which says that hey, this is my login page, and that's all. And now as we are on version 21, so you don't need to say it hey, this is standalone true, because now this is by default standalone. Out of the moment you have any component created in Angular, those are standalone. And just in case if you want to define them like hey, I don't want a standalone, then you have to specifically go and say that hey, this is standalone false. Okay, so we are not going to do this because I'm already in love with standalone component, and that things makes your job much easier. So this is my page which is created. So let me copy this, and I'm going to create my component called as cart. Again, the name will be cart.ts. Paste these things here. I will just replace this with cart, and rest all is already getting done with the AI autocomplete which I'm using now, which is GitHub Copilot. Let me save this and let me do the same for other page components. So here I have already created all the necessary files what was required, like for example the product, profile, and the register. So now what we will do, let's go ahead and let's configure the routing for all of our page components, and the routing will be configured over here. So let me do that one by one. So for the routing we have a path and we have a login. So let's put login here, and we are going to say load component. Okay, as we are using standalone, so this is how we go ahead and call them, and no need to put this because I think AI is just trying to hallucinate now and giving me wrong information. So this is basically coming from my page. So this is /pages. Inside the pages I have login, and in the login I have a file name called as login, and this guy can also be removed and changed just to a login. Okay, same thing has to be done for register. So let me do that, and I think now my AI will be smart. Let's see if it is. Yes, it became smarter now with my one particular code. So this is what I have: a login, a register, and let me also put for others as where AI can help. Yes, product, load component, which is product, which is good. I have my profile, and there is one more that is okay. I don't wanted that. When the part is cart, I'm going to load my component. So load component, and this is going to load my cart component, and this is what I have at the moment. Let me remove this and show it. So this is what I have the route configured: login, register, product, profile, and cart. Now let me try to picturize you something on Excel draw what I need here for now. Like for example, if you are on your login page, so this is what I'm going to show. I will be having a login page, and inside that I'm going to show two things: my form, basically username and password, something like that. It will look like that, and same thing for the register, it will happen. So for register again I will have something similar component, and that will show like I have a login and register. But for example, if my login and registration is done, I need something a bit different page, and that is going to be like this. So now after login I will have a big page, and on the top I will be creating my header comes. So there will be a header on the top, then there will also be a footer here in the bottom, and basically you will have a center part where you will be having this is not the correct one I want to use, I'll go with. So in the center you will have one more component, I would say, or one more section, and that is going to be a router outlet. Like for example, on the header you have a logout button, you have profile button. If you click, so this center content will change based on that. So to configure such a routing, so what we need, right? So we need to separate my login, register, and there will also be something called as main layout. Okay, so this is going to be a main layout component, and inside this component I will start to put my children, and inside the children's, what you can expect, the children will have your components called as your products, your cart, and your profile. And this is going to be the perfect place where I can basically place my guards, and the guard name will be the auth guard. So here I can place my guard called as auth guard, which means if the user is authenticated, then only this children should be visible, because this guard is going to protect that for me. Okay, which means to have this kind of a layout, we need to do some changes in our code and also in the folder the way we have added. So let me first again, let me close everything and let me also make it like that. Okay, so in the src, in the pages, I'm going to create one more component, and that is going to be my main layout.ts file. Okay, I'll talk about this file more in detail once you will see the structure of this file, like what all content this file will store. So let me go ahead and have this export class main layout. Okay, and again, as I told you, right, this is just a class. To make it component, you need a decorator. So that decorator starts with @component, and that should have a selector and the template and css, but css I think I will be avoiding it because we will be using tailwind. And this has to be the backtick, which basically tells that this is my main layout. Okay, and in this layout, this guy is going to configure my routing. So to have a routing, so you need router outlet, and that router outlet you first need to import. So you have this router outlet, and then you can use this router out. So now if you know that Angular, you can basically have self-closing tag. So I will be using the self-closing tag of Angular, right? Now, as I told you, right, so now here you have layout, which is this, and on the top you have a header, in the center you have, so basically let me put it over here as, so you have a router outlet here, you have a header on top of router outlet, and a footer over here, and this is what the content of my layout will look like. Let me get rid of this constructor, and here let me try to picturize things more for you. So this is my router outlet. Here you expect something called as app header, and in the bottom you can expect something called as app footer, which means now we need these two components as well to be created so that we can get rid of this. So to create such a component, I call them as core component because they are only created once and used at one specific place, which is on your top and the bottom. So let's go in the component and create our header.ts. I did a mistake, so let me rename and bring back the dot, and we will have footer dot. So let's start things off with your header. So export class header, and now you will see I will be adding some template code. So before that, let me put this component. There will be a selector, there will be a template which looks something. Let me copy the same content and go inside the footer and paste it here and change things whatever is required. So here this is my application header, this is my app footer, and this is footer, right? Now as we have these two components created, so both of them can be imported over here, and here you can also add it in the imports array. So let me go ahead and add them, and I think so the quick fix should work, and this should import the header and also the footer, and now you can see all the errors just gone. And now what I'll do, right, let me go ahead and run the application. So for that you have to be in the NGRX store, which is my the project folder, and inside that just say ngdev. This is the new way of Angular basically to run your application. You can still use ngserve, but this is also one of the way which can be. So let me go to my page here and let's search for this localhost 4200, and currently you won't find anything because we haven't made any changes to our root app HTML. So let's go inside your root app HTML and you can get rid of everything. And what you need here, you just need a router outlet, and that's all. Again, this suggests me like this, but I prefer SF I don't know what to be called, self-closing tag. Let's save this and let's go back and let's see that what kind of page it shows when we say /login. So I can see it shares that login page. Right now I think this is the correct time for me also to validate the tailwind. If you remember, right, we have already added tailwind when we have scaffolded this Angular project, right, in the beginning. Now let's take a look if the tailwind is actually working. So if I go in the login and let me put some class here to see if things are working. So I can say text for Excel, and I can say maybe text red 400 or 500, and let's see if that gets applied. So if I go back, I can see that hey, the tailwind is working out of the box, that all of these classes are working fine, which means the tailwind is also running fine for me. So now after adding this main layout, let me take a look at how things can change now in the app route. So basically now if you see, right, I wanted to separate these two. So login and register still stays like that, but now I will have another one, and this one is going to be a new path, which means when the path is blank, right, when the path is empty, I can say load components and I will load the main layout. And inside the children, what I can do, right, let me just make it correct. So this is my children, and in the children I can just copy all of this what I have created. So let me grab them, and inside this array you can place everything here, and let me format the file, right? So now if you take a look, this is how the new routing will look like. So we have a login register, and then we have another one, which is if my path is blank, I will show this set of children. Now one thing to note here, that this is not going to be that straightforward, because now if you go on the browser and for example if I just remove this, can you see now after removing that I am able to see my application header and I'm able to see my application footer, correct? But there should be a way that it should by default take me to this page called as product, because when I go to the products, then I'm able to see my application header on the top, then my products page, and then my footer page. And if I change this to cart, then this is changed to the cart, which means this is what I wanted, right? I wanted the center part to get changed and header and footer to always stick there, correct? And to actually make that work, we might require an additional help, and that help will be from something called as scan activate. And inside the scan activate, we have to basically create a guard, and this guard is going to basically check for us. There will be something called as auth guard, and again I'm not going to create this now, but yeah, I'm just giving you an idea that what this guard will do. So this guard is going to basically check about the authentication. If it is not authenticated, then it will not allow you to basically access all of this below route, okay? But for example, if your guard says hey, everything is good, user can use this routes, which means it has to return a true. If it is true, then only you can access this product profile. And so maybe I can basically show them once we are going to create the login and register page. Once those are done, then we will go ahead and create this auth guard, and things will make more sense now, right? So let me remove this, and let's try to focus on your header, footer, and the login page. So what I will do first, right, let's go back to your home. Basically if I go to this, so the first page should be your login page, and now I want to design this page. So basically what I want here is that there should be a very minimal background on the back, which takes the complete screen size, and in the bottom I want a card here, which is my login page card, kind of that, okay? So let me go in my login, and inside this login we have to design this template. Again, for designing the template, I'm not gonna do it line by line. So what I will do, I'll just copy paste it from one of my snippet which I have already prepared, and I will be pasting it here. But again, this is AI world. If you want that to be created by AI, just give a good prompt to your AI that hey, I need a login page, it should have a username and password with a sign in button. I think AI will help you to create that pretty fast. But what extra I can provide you here is that how I'm going to design that. So for that, I will be using something called as host class. So inside this host, we can have basically a class, and in this class we can define some CSS, basically the CSS classes, and that is going to be my minimum height, right? We will be using flex here, and flex with an items center, and we are going to make sure that whatever content the host will have, it should be in the center, okay? And I'm going to make use of not gray, but I'll make use of background slate within 100, and I will provide some padding around, and that's all. Okay, so this is what my host class will have, and now let me start designing the template part. So this is what the template will look like basically, and okay, AI is trying to help me, but I don't want AI help. I'm gonna put it by myself. Let me paste it here. This is what I have for now. So we have a widthful. Basically, if you want to still copy what I have it for you, so maybe you can pause the video and you can basically write it down by yourself, but that I will not recommend. So please go ahead and use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever you like and create a template by using this tailwind class, right? And this is what I have already prepared, and this is how things basically looks like now. So if I save all the changes, and let me just show you how the form basically. So here I have this sign in button, I have this username, password, and I have a sign in button here. And also I have some info here, which, like, if you don't have an account, you can click on this register to basically go on register route, correct? Now I wanted to basically talk something about this button now. So imagine right now you want to create something, and you want to create a button, and in your application there's a lot of time happens that your button styles gets changed, like down the line. Sometime you miss a padding, sometime you miss something there. So what we are going to do today, we are going to create a component in Angular, and that is going to be a button component. Okay, and that component basically you can use it everywhere. Like you can have a button with variant, can have a button with different sizes and whatnot. Okay, maybe what I can do, I can create a selector based component. Maybe I can use a selector called as app button, and once you apply this app button, so this button will get styled automatic. So currently if you see, this all looks kind of muted. So we are going to design this by creating this selector based right? So let me go ahead and do that. And what I'll do, I'll make use of this shared folder, and inside that I will create my component called as button.tl. So first thing what you need on this button is that you need different types of variant, like you need a primary, destructive, secondary, ghost, link, or icon button. And there could be a chance that you need different size of button, so you also need to maintain the size thing. So let me create those two types here so that things can make sense here. So if you see, right, we have this button variant type and we have button size type, and all this button variants what you see, right, this will have some kind of a CSS classes, like sorry, the tailwind classes, and those can be defined just below here as a constant called as variant classes. So basically this is my record where I have key as button variant, which is this, and I have a string called as the classes which will be applied to such button. So this is quite easy to understand as well. Like primary, we are using a slate color. For destructive, we are using a red color. For secondary, again we are using slate with a minimum shade. Ghost is basically transparent. Link is also transparent, and icon buttons are also transparent because that will only show the icon, right? Now we also need to maintain the sizes. So for that, again, I will have another const which is going to be my classes what I have. So I have size classes for this button size, and then I also have icon size classes. So those two are maintained separate. So one for button and one for icon button. Okay, so we have these two types of classes maintained. So now this is the actual time for me to go ahead and create the component. So let me have a component, and the component will have a select. And now this selector is very important because, as I told you, right, I will be using a selector based kind of a component, and this selector could be applied on buttons. So you can say this as a on button. And if you want to also make it apply on anchor tags, like for example a tag, exactly that's what AI suggested, so that also you can do by actually specifying it like this, which means this selector can be applied on button and anchor tag of your HTML element. Okay, now what you need now, you need a template, and the template will have nothing but just an ng content, which means we are making use of ng content here, that whatever user passes to those button, it will be basically taken up here and it will render. And now the main idea here is making use of host class, which means that you are going to apply some classes directly over here. Okay, and this host class, basically I'll tell you how this can be applied dynamically. If you want to apply some dynamic host classes, so you have to use such a binding. Here you can define that this is my class, and here you can basically write some basically some function you can call here which will be applied to this particular class. And the same thing has to be done because, for example, your button can also be disabled, correct? So how you can handle the disable state is by adding this. Here you can say that attribute dot disabled, and For example, there is another way, which means if you want to also maintain the accessibility, so that also can be done by using the same thing by saying attribute dot area disable. Okay, and in this way basically you go ahead and create your host classes, which is required for you to basically bind some initial classes to your button. Now let me go ahead and create the component by saying export class button, and as this is my button, which means I can import, I can do some I can make use of input and output here. The first thing is going to be my, let me say, read only variant, because I'm not liking the response from the AI, so I will be making use of input. Exactly right. So input, this is of type button variant, and the initial will be a primary. Then there is something called as size, which is I'm going to take as a medium, and then there is something called as disabled input, and that is going to be a false initial. Right now what you can basically exactly now, so basically AI is suggesting me such kind of a response, but imagine now you have an input which is a signal, right? So whenever the input is changes, what you can use, we can make use of something called as computed. So we can also create a protected read only, maybe let's give it as a host classes. Exactly. And now what this host class will have, it will make use of computed, and inside this computed we can just put something like this. So here we can create a base classes, what has to be applied. So this is what AI is trying to suggest me, so this much big. Let me go ahead and accept it, and let's see how things will be. Okay, so I have accepted the response from AI to take this base classes. Now there is something called as variant class, which I need it from here. So we have this array, inside this array whatever user has given, so based on this key it will take the variant class. And now for example, if the variant is icon, then it will take the icon size class. If it is not icon, then it will take the button size. Okay, and based on that it is going to return this. And what basically we can do, rather than doing this, we can basically make use of string interpolation, and we can just say base variant class and size, and that's pretty much it, I would say. But what we can, I think there is still an error, so what we can do, we can just remove this, and we can make use of disabled, which is a signal. If it is undefined, then please use null. Same goes here as well, so we'll use disabled signal if it is null. If it is undefined, then put it here as, and that's all. So this is how we have basically created a component called as button, and this button could be used everywhere to style it accordingly to what you need, like based on the variants what you need. Okay, let me save the changes now, and what I'll do, I'll go in the login component again, and over here you have a component created, so you have to use it, you have to import. So let's put an import, and let me here as button. Once you have the button, now if you go on this, and if you apply, if you say that hey app button, let's save the changes and let's see how things will get changed. Let me see if there is any error in the compile. Yes, there are some errors here, and I need to check it, what is this error. So let me just go ahead and rerun the application, and let's see what's wrong. So I say ngdev to run the app. So the Angular compiler is failing, and there is a high chance that something went wrong here in this button component. So what I can see, right, this class is empty, so I needed to put here as host classes. So that is the first thing what I see, there was a mistake. And then now it is complaining something here in the app.config. Let me also check if anything can be fixed here. Looks like all good to me. I'm really not sure what's wrong. I will again try to recompile the project, and can you see now after recompiling everything is back to normal. And let me go ahead and show you the web. So can you see now my sign in button got already designed how it wanted. Just one thing is missing, the cursor pointer is not there. So let me add that one base class so that this becomes cursor pointer. Save the changes, and now here you can see we have this cursor. Okay, so this is what I wanted to design, and that is done. For example, now if you want to change the button to a different color, so that can be now done very easily. You just need to mention here variant, and in the variant you can put something called as destructive. And if you save the changes, and let's see how things will be. So can you see now the color gets changed to red color just because you have a different variant. And same thing can be applied here, like you have something called as size you can say SM. Save the changes, size got changed to small. There is also something called as LG if I'm not wrong, and here you can see the button becomes large. So let me again bring it back to primary. And again, if you don't mention primary, it is by default primary, so let me get rid of. Okay, so this is what we have created, a button, and this button component we can use it in a lot of places. So we will be using this selector going forward. Now we need to check something here in the login. So let's go back to the login, and here we have the sign, which is good. And whenever we click on this register, I want to change the route to go to the register page. Okay, so let's go and do that. So over here we need to add a router link. To add router link, first we have to go and import this, something called as router link, which is coming from angular/router. And here you go in the bottom again, put it here as router link/register. Now if I save the changes, let's go back, and if I click on this, so I'm able to go to the correct page, which is called as register page. Now I need to design this page, which is going to something similar what we have did for login. So here in the register, let me start things off by basically adding the host class, what I did for login. And now in the template, let me remove this and paste things from my code snippet. And this is what I have, which I got from my code snippet. Save the changes. And now let's go to the browser to see how things look. So can you see now we have a username, email, password, and confirm password added. And we have a register button which has no style. So let me go ahead and add it. And if you remember right now, adding a style to a button is easy now. We just have to import here your button component, what you have created, and just use the selector just over here, which is, yeah, and put it here as app button. Save it, and boom, you already have your register button styled with this cursor thing what you see. Now what you need, again, we need a routing for here as well, that if someone clicks on this login, it should go back to the login. So for that, I'm just trying to replicate what I have did for login. So you router link here, and in the bottom you have this button, and you just say here, this is not the one, so sorry, this is the place where I needed to add the router link/login and save the change. Again, if you guys saying why I'm skipping this much, because see, creating a template, it's not a big deal now. With the help of AI, things can be done very fast, and I don't want it to waste my time here. Rather than, I will utilize this time to explain you more of concepts or maybe more of logic, how I will be building few things when we start with the NGRX part. So let me go back and just see if this thing works. So if I go to login, register, yeah, this thing works seamlessly now. So now our form is ready. I would say the template is ready, but now do you think that is enough? The answer is no, right? So now we have to connect our form so that we can put some value here, and we can click on sign in to see the object what we are sending it to the backend, right? The username and password. And same thing for the register, correct? So now I'm going to start with a discussion on something new which was released in Angular version 21, and that is signal form, right? And one thing to note here, that it is already written in the red color, important, that this signal forms are experimental, and there is a high chance that whatever API you might see, like for example, I will be using the field, I will be using validate, the min length, max length, there is a high chance that this API could be changed in the future. Okay, so that's why it is recommended by Angular not to use it in the production ready application, but you are just here to learn something, you try it out something, then you can go ahead and use this signal form. And this is what the idea what I have got, like whatever the example what you see, I will be making use of all of them, and based on all of these examples and whatever the documentation says, I will be implementing them inside my project for this sign in and register, right? So let me start things off with the sign in or I would say the login component. So if you go in your login.ts file, to build a form, first you need to prepare the model, right? So the model will be something simple. So let me create the property called as login model, and this is going to be a signal, and inside the signal we will have an object where we will store username and we will have a password. Okay, always try to initialize the properties, right? Whatever you are defining for your form, make sure to initialize them with some value. Don't just keep them undefined or null, because there is a high chance you might face some issue in the compile. So that's what I have did. I have initialized my form with this username and password. So my model is ready. Now I want to build a form. So now there is, it becomes more simpler. I'll tell you why. So now here I'll say login form equals, I'll search for form, and currently my IntelliSense is not helping me. So I'll go on the top and I will import it manually for the first time. So we have form, which is coming from Angular/forms/signal. Okay, and here you can see we have got this form now, and this form, what you need to do, you just need to specify your model what you have created. So you can say that this dot login model, and that's all. and that's all you had to do. So your form is actually ready, and here you can see when the code got compiled, you can see that what all dependencies it is using, right, which is coming from Angular form / signals. Now what you need to do, so your TS part is done already, so you don't need to do have a form control, form builder, and then make use of builder to build your form and all of that in the construct. So things are becoming more and more declarative by usage of signal, right? So now the TS part is done. Now we have to connect this form with your template, with your HTML. And how can you do that? So to do it, there is another thing which again came from form, and that is something called as field. Okay, so you need to first import this field, and you need to also have it here in the imports array field. And now let me show you the usage of that. So here you have to specify your field, and you have to call your form dot your field. So for me, here it is the username, and I want to connect one more field here, which is my password. So I'll say field login form dot password, and that's all we had to do. Okay, now we can make use of submit. So we can use this directive ng submit, right? And here we can basically call your on submit. Okay, and the on submit we can basically pass a event. I'll tell you why we are doing that. And just in the bottom I will say on submit event.prevent default, and this is what maybe you can start to put here. So now here we can say that we have a login form, and if you press dot, you can say, hey, if your form is valid, then please show the value. If the form is not valid, you can console like, hey, the form is invalid, and something like that, right? So talking about validity here, but we haven't added such thing, right? We don't have any form validation added here. So I think the AI is what just told me to use this, so that's what I used. But I'll show you how we can add validation here. But let me show you like how things will show it in the console. So if I go back and let me inspect element, open up the console, and let me zoom this a bit and clear. So here I can put my username, and I can put a strong password, and if I click on sign in, so can you see something happened? Oh, because the connection was not established. Maybe I'm using ng submit, and that's why it has just reloaded. There is a high chances that I have to define my button. So here the problem was we need to specify this type as submit, which is already here, what I see, and I'm not sure why that happened. Let me again check. If I click on submit, it basically reloads my page, and here what I see, right, there is something wrong here. Maybe I think I'm using this field. Let me go ahead and import forms module, and let's save the changes, because maybe there is a high chance that this directive basically comes from forms module. That's why. So if I save the changes, and if I go back, if I click on sign in, yeah, nothing happens, and it just shows me the login data. And now if I put a username here, and let me put some password, if I click on sign in, I can see my login data, and my form is basically got connected. So my TS and my HTML, they both are in sync now, and whatever I put in the form, I'm able to see it in the console. Right now, if just in case if you want to avoid this forms module, then you have to basically handle it via your button click. So then you will have to create this click event, and then you can say on submit. But maybe I think that's fine at the moment what we have here now, but we just need to import forms module, and then you can use this ng submit directive, so that you can use keyboard action enter to save, right? So now this is what your signal forms is, and this is what things have made so much easy now with the signal. Now let's discuss about how can we do the validation. Okay, so to do the form validation, we can basically here put we can put a callback. Here we can put as a root path, and in this root path here you can basically start using some APIs from Angular. So one of the API of signal form is required. Can you see this is coming from form / signal? So you can use this utility kind of a function here, required, and inside that use this root path dot username, and this is how you can make this field as required. And you want to put your message, so that also you can put it here by saying your message that hey, username is required, and same thing can be done for the password as well. So this is what it. And if you need to add some more validation for the password, for example you need minimum length of 6, so that can also be done. So you see we have this minimum length coming from signal / form, and you can put here like this root path dot password. You can give the length, okay, this is what I want, 6 should be the minimum one, and you can put your error message that password must be 6 character long, and that's all, which means now you have added the validation here. Now if I go back and if I try to click on sign in, can you see now I see form is invalid, right? I can see form is showing me invalid because I don't have any details. So let me put some detail and let me put a password 1 2 3 4 5 and click on sign in. Can you see still the form is invalid because I need minimum 6. So let me put one more character, and now if I click on sign in and I'm able to see the form got valid and I can see the login date, right? But do you think this is a good user experience? The answer to that is no, this is not a good user experience, and I'll tell you why I say that. Because whenever there is a validation error, we need to notify the user with some maybe something. I can show it here and show it here, or maybe I can disable the button, right? So let me just show you how you can show the validation errors, and that has to be somewhere over here. So what you can do, right, you can use this new control for syntax of if. I can say that login form dot username dot, I think there is something called as valid, but you need to invoke the signal, and then you can say dot valid or invalid, something like that. So if I check if this is invalid, so you can put here as negation. If it is invalid and login form dot username is touched, then you want to show some error. Okay, and now to show this error, there are actually now this is an array of errors what you can expect from this login form. So let me show you that how you can see those errors now. So if I put here as a p tag for now, and let me put the interpolation, I'll say login form dot password dot errors, and let me put here as a JSON just to show you like how does this error basically show. So for that, let me import a JSON pipe and save the change. So if I go back to the login, and basically I wanted to make error in the username, so that let me say that the form is touched, and now here you can see that we got a message here called as kind, the password is required. And if I put some password here, can you see I got another message called as password must be 6 character long, which means I have an array here. Okay, which means to display those errors, we might have to make use of for loop to basically define all set of errors here, correct? So now what I can do, right, I can basically grab this and use your @for, and I can show something like this, I guess. Okay, let me get rid of this error, and there is something called as track, and what we are trying to track, there is something unique called as error dot kind, if I'm not okay. So this is still showing me error because my AI again hallucinated and it gave me wrong. So this is what is the correct way. So error of your errors what you have, track the kind and display them over here. Okay, same thing can be used here for the password. So I'll copy the same thing and I'll put it over here. This will just change to password, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And now if I go back, I can basically remove this JSON pipe as I'm not using it, and let's save the changes. And now if I make some mistake, if I touch the form, I can see object, which is wrong. Let's see why. Okay, because here we are just showing error, but we have something called as message. So we have error dot message, and same thing goes over here as well. We can say error dot message. And let's save the change. Now if I go back, I can see that username is required. Same thing if I touch the form, if I go back, password is required. Let me put here some username, so the error just gone. And for the password, if I start typing, first it shows required, and now if I start typing, it says hey, you need 6 character long. So you can add 6 character and the error just vanished. Okay, now same thing you can basically do it here as well for the disabling of the button, and that can be basically done by using the attribute here. So you already have an attribute called as disabled, and we can say if your login form, I'm not sure why it's showing login form dot valid, I'm just checking to have invalid here. Yeah, we do have invalid, so I can check if my login form is invalid, then I'm going to disable the button. And let's save the changes and let's see if it really applies that. So if I remove this, so can you see now my button got disabled, and if I add some value, then my button got, and this is what I wanted, and this is what I'm able to achieve with Angular's new signal form. Now if you noticed one thing over here, right, like just to display the error, we have to use this much kind of a template code, and I'm just not liking it. So as you're an Angular developer, you know how you can create some components with some inputs and output. So let's try to make this guy at a one centralized place called as form error. So we can create a new component here in the shared, and let's give the name as form errors.tl. Let me create the class. Okay, and this is just a class, so we need to make this component by saying @component. Can have a selector and we can have a template. I'm just looking at what AI has suggested me, which is again a wrong, which I don't want it. So what I can do, I can just get rid of that. Okay, now what is the expectation? So what I'm expecting a form field, because what you see here, you first need to understand like what we really need. So whatever error we are showing for a specific control, which means we need to take this control and put it over here so that we can do and we can show the validation error, right? So let me create an input, and for the input I'll say read only, and let me call it the name as control. Okay, and this is going to be my input dot required. If you want to show error, so this is a required term, and there is something called as field state, and I'll just put it as unknown because I hate using any. So let me put it as unknown here at the moment. And then once you have this input, now if you go back to your login.ts file, here we are actually first validating that should we show the error or not, right? So let me go and try to replicate this logic there. So now we have control, which is an input, and I can create another protected read only, and I'll say should show error, maybe something like that. And this is going to be my computed, and in the computed what you can do, you can basically first access your field by saying that this dot control, or I can say control directly. It's all up to you, but they call it as field, and I don't want it to call this field because there will be some contradiction there in terms of naming. Okay, now what you can do, you can basically check here that hey, if your field is invalid, okay, and this is a signal, so I have to do it. If your field is invalid and if your field is touched, then you should show error, and that's what I want to do here. So I'll just say here @if should show error, correct, and inside that you can have your for loop. So we had @for loop, and in the for loop you will just show a message called as small, and here you can show your validation message, like invalidation message, whatever you will have. But for that you need to make sure what you need. So what we need here, we will get access to the error of your control. I don't know why my IntelliSense is not helping me. Yes, this is what I wanted, and here you will show the error message. So we can say that error dot message. Okay, let me format this a bit. I don't know, format is also not that good. Maybe my prettier is not aware about this new control flow thing. Maybe I can update that later. But yeah, I need to put some class, and the class name will be text small. I can put it as a block letter, and then text red 500 to make it a red color, and we can put empty as 1 so that if there is 2-3 errors, so there will be some small gap above. Okay, and this is what I wanted to create. So we have this new component created which should have a control as an input, and this component is going to show me the error message. Now let me save the changes, and let's go back to the login.ts file, and here I need to import my form error. Okay, form errors, and just here I can replace all of this code with this one line. Let me get rid of that. App form error, you pass in the control, and that's all. Okay, same thing has to be done here. Let me go in the bottom, and this will be replaced with this new app error and control. I think this has to be signal, so we can give this as a signal. Right, and let's save the changes. So now after saving all the changes, let's come here, and now if I see, can you see I'm still able to see the same error? But now with just one line we can show all set of error what we wanted to show, like a form validation and everything, whatever you see here. So can you see now my problem just got solved. Now I am not bloating everything with my form, the validation error. We just have one single line. We just pass in the control, and rest is handled by this component itself. And this is what I basically wanted to talk about, this new signal form. Now we have to replicate something similar in the register.ts file, right? I know this video is going to be a one-shot video, but just in case if you want to practice, I will highly recommend you to pause this video and go ahead and implement the same thing by your own, this register form. And once you are done, I will be showing it anyway, but if you want to practice, so you can do that. So now we have to make something similar in the register as well. So I'm going to just go here and making sure that all the imports I can get it from here. So I'll just copy this and put it here in the register that I will be using all of to create the form. So first thing what I have taught, right, we have to create a model. So let's create a register model, and this is what I will have in the register model. And let me go ahead and import this signal then, and here I have to create the register form. We need to attach the register model, and let's also add the validation now, because now we already know, right, how to add it. So here if you see, right, now I need on submit here as well, and if your form is valid then you will show this. So here what you see, right, I have some basic validation done which is required, and we have a minimum length, like which is something similar to what we have did in the login. But now I need one additional one, and that additional is basically I need to basically confirm that my current password is same as confirm password. If it is not, then I want to create a new kind of a validation. Maybe password didn't match, or maybe something different. We can give any name. Okay, so we can say password do not match. So to create such kind of advanced validation, so there is also a new term added here, which is validate. And in this validate, what you can add, you can basically tell your what control you want to check. Like for example, the help what I'm getting from AI. So you can just say, hey, root path. Okay, so let AI give what he wants to give, and then maybe I can confirm more what exactly we need here. So basically what we need, so we have this validate, we added the basically the field here, and over here we get two things. So maybe I can destructure it. The first thing is value, and the another thing is value of. Okay, just in case if you want to get the current password, so you can say that, hey, I want to get the password first. So you can say const password, and you can say value of password. So you want to fetch the value of the current password what user has added, and now you need to get the current password, which is your confirm password, I would say. So your confirm password will look something like, so this is what you will have, and you say value, and value is a signal. So you can give a value, and that's how you just extract it. Okay, I'm just trying to build here the logic how things will look. Just in case if your password is null, okay, if your password is null, or I would say if there is no password, then I can simply return null. Okay, because hey, don't apply any value. Okay, but just in case, okay, and also if you don't have password, I think for that we already added, like if there is no confirm password, I think this already makes it work. So now what is the another logic we need? A very simple one. We need one more if condition, and we will say here, if your password doesn't match with the confirm password, we can return a new error. Okay, and the by default it will just return. So now there is a new way to basically create any errors, and that is a kind. So we can create a kind here and give a name as a password mismatch. Okay, password mismatch, and now here you can also give the message that password do not match. Okay, so this is the kind, and this is the message what you can, and this is what was expected here. So this is what we can do now. So now there is one more additional error what we have created by using this validate. So now we can confirm the password with the current password, and if it doesn't matches, we return this new kind. Okay, and if everything goes well, we just return null, that hey, everything is fine, and we are returning null, so it is a valid. So it's a valid, all those fields are valid, and that's all. So this is what we have added here to create this register form. Now we have to connect the form. So for connecting the form, again I have showed already that you need this field. So let me grab this field, and over on the inputs I need to basically attach. So we don't need form control, which is what AI is suggesting. Rather we need a field, and you can just call register form dot here this is username, so you put your username. Let me do for all, this is the correct. Password, we can add field dot password. We have password, we can password, and that's pretty much it. Okay, now here on the click of button, we can basically call, we can say click, and we say on submit, and here we pass event, and this is what it's going to call, this event dot prevent default, so that no action happens there, the bubbling. And here we have this if condition, basically to check for the form validation, and if it is valid, then only it will console the register form value. If it is not valid, then it will console form is invalid, and that's pretty much it. So let's save the changes, and let me go to the browser to see if everything works fine. Open up localhost, and for us now it is register. So let's go to register page, and over here we haven't added the validation message, so that's why you're not getting any validation message here even if you're touching the form. I think we need to also do that part, and I also need to disable this. What I can do, I can make use of disabled, and here you can say register form dot valid. If it is invalid, then you have to disable the button, and that's what it did, right? You can click on this register anymore, because you need to make the form valid, then only you can. Let me just give the, okay, can you see it is breaking because password is incorrect. So let me 156, and same to here. But see, the moment I do that, this button gets enabled, what you see the register. But now I need some message here to show. And if you remember right, we have created a new component called as form errors, and we can just leverage this. So let's go back to the register and we can call here form errors. Let's start to, we say app form error, we pass in, and that's pretty much it. We can make use of, I don't know what we call this, self-closing tag. You pass the controls. Let's do for here as well. For email, password, confirm password. Now let's save the changes, and now we can also see the validation. If you remember right, our validation works if you touch the form. If I touch the form, if I go back, see the username is required, email is required, password is required, and confirm is. Now let's start to put some data here. Put an email, I can give a password, and now if you see right, password is required and password do not match. We have those two errors. So if I add some data, can you see password do not match, and once the password matches, the error just go off and you have this register button enabled. Which means now if I click on this register, I should see the register data, and can you see now all the data what was on the form, it's get displayed here as an object, which means that we have successfully made use of Angular's new signal form, and we have able to create this login and register by use. And we also saw another way by how we can basically display your error. This is where this new form error component comes into the picture. Now if you take a look at this register form, just by adding this validation, I think we have already overwhelmed the whole component with this kind of a logic. So now what you can do right with the new signal forms, you can basically go ahead and create a new file here which is called register schema basically .ts, and over here you can define all your validation inside this particular file. So what we need here first is that we can create a type, and this type is going to be your register model, and inside that you have your username, email, password, and confirm password. Let me correct this spelling. Yes, this is better now, and this is the type, so you have to use. Now we can also export a constant called as a register schema, and inside that I think AI is trying to help me, but the help is not correct, so let me get rid of this. So here we have something called as schema, which is coming from signal form, and you need to just define your model, and inside that again you will have this root callback, what you had, the root path. So what you can do basically, you can grab all of this what we have just created and put them just after that, and let's go ahead and do all the imports so that everything becomes all green. Maybe we can use all missing imports, and that's pretty much it. So which means now what we have did, we have abstracted whatever the validation logic was inside this register schema, and this is already exported. So what we can do, we just go here and import this and call it here as register schema, and that's pretty much it. Can you see now we have abstracted all the validation related logic into this schema, and that schema now sits here into a separate file, which means now whatever you need to do related to the validation, that can be handled separately inside this particular file. And just in case if you want to use Zod here to do the validation, so that also is possible now. And this is where I was so much happy about this new change related to the signal form what Angular has introduced with this version. And this is what basically I had for you guys about what are new Angular signal form. So now going forward, I will be showing you how we can actually install now NGRX package and use this package basically to do the login and registration. So we are going one step at a time. So as we have the login and register ready, let's try to connect them with the APIs, and let's see in action how we can make use of NGRX action, features, and the effects. So now before starting with the NGRX State Management, so here is the basic life cycle of NGRX. Basically everything starts with your action, which is from your component. Then there is something called as reducer, you have a store, and then you have a selector which basically selects your slice of data, and that basically goes and used inside your component wherever you. And then there is another part of that, like if you have something related to API calling, then this effects come into picture, and this effects basically communicates with your service, and this service basically helps you to grab some data from the database, or you want to post some database. So that happens inside this service, and this service gets used inside, right? So this is what a basic state management lifecycle is of NGRX, which is kind of a Redux pattern what we have. And just in case if you if you are interested in understanding the basics about what is this NGRX, I will highly recommend my YouTube video around this. Like, you can just search on YouTube for Angular State Management with NGRX. So I have a beginner friendly tutorial about what is this NGRX, and also I have demonstrated a small video on what is NGRX Effect, and both of these tutorials are beginner friendly. Okay, if you don't know about these two topics, then please go ahead and check out these two videos, then maybe this video can really help. And also, just to highlight that, if you see that in that video we have covered all about what are actions, what is reducers, and also what are select, right? But in this one, this is a bit advanced version, so I will be using this advanced section of what they have, where we have this meta reducer, which is something new, right? And I will be heavily using this feature creator, right? And there is also called as action group. So now in this video I will be focusing more about these two topics, where we are going to create our actions in action group and our features into a feature create. I think that was enough of theory. Now we can go ahead in the installation section and we can start to add this NGRX. Let me copy this. Let's go inside Visual Studio Code and open up your terminal. Let me close our application and clear everything, and let's add this command. So when I say ng add NGRX store @latest, I am expecting something will go wrong, because I'll tell you the reason why. Let's see first if it is able to install or not. Yes, I think I was correct, because now we are on version 21 and the NGRX version is still on 20.1, and that's why it is creating that dependency issue. So if you want to install this, so you have to either go force or legacy peer, or else you have to wait for Angular's not the Angular's but NGRX latest stable version to come, which is on version 21, where they can basically add this peer dependency. So let me make use of a command called as --force, and let's see if that works. Here I need to press Y. I think so it's still not able to install. I'm not sure why. Let me try with legacy peer dip, and I hope that this time it works. Let's see. So if I use that command, it again installing, press on Y, and it's still not able to install it. Now I know one more way by which you can do, right? Let me also try that part. If not, then we have to manually install it with npm install. So currently we are trying with ng add, but if it doesn't work, then we will go with npm install with --force. But let me try this one last step, which I have did last time, and that time it has worked. So go inside your package.json, and just below the script you need to just paste this override, and what you are basically trying to override that NGRX store, and you are saying that, hey, this is what the dependencies are which you want to override for common, and maybe these are the culprits, that's why it always breaks. So if I save the changes now, let's go back and use this ng add store. Let's say Y, and let's hope, oh yes, exactly, now this time it works, because I have just added that override, and I can see that it has updated my two files. One is package.json. Let's go and check what is date. So here it has added the version 20.1, and another update was done inside app.config.ts. So let's go there and check what is the, so exactly now. So if you see now, just by using ng add, it is able to do the basic configuration what is required, which is this one line to add this provide store, and that's pretty much. So now I can say that my store is installed, and let me go ahead and run the application again by saying ngdev, and I'm confident that this will compile. Yes, it is done. It's time for me to close. Now what you need, right? So currently the NGRX has been added. Now we need first API, right? So API call has to be there so that we can do this login and register. And as I told you guys that for APIs we will be using fake store. So let's go on the website fakestoreapi.com and click on read docs. So over here we have this API which is for login, where we need to pass username and password, and we have another one which is user, which is for registering a user. So we have this add a new user. So let's go first with creating the login, and then maybe we can see the register, because this is not exactly a register API endpoint, but we are just going to leverage this add new user as a register API, and that's all. So I want to first focus on this one. For this, the payload looks like this, where you have username, password, and this is what the URL you have to do. So let me copy it and let me just put it here somewhere, so that whenever I need this as a base URL, so I can get it done. So maybe what I can do, right, I can go with the new injection token by saying export const API URL, and we can make use of new injection token. So this is our injection token, where you need to specify type, and That's all. So this is what I just put as a type, and this is what I have the API URL. And just in the bottom, what we can say, right, we just have like whenever someone is injecting this, we can tell them, hey, please use this value. So just in the provide, we can just press comma, and over here when provide this API URL, and whenever someone is trying to inject this, please use the value as fakestoreapi.com. And that, so now whenever someone wants to use API URL as a base URL, then they can inject this direct. Okay, I will show you in a moment what exactly I mean by that. So now what I'll do, I'll go inside my shared in the services. Here I will create a auth api.t, and here we can say export class auth API, right? And this is just a class to make it a service. What we need injectable, and inside that we will make use of provided in root just to make it tree shakeable. So now this is tree shakeable and can be injected in the right. So this is what I had my service, and inside here I'm going to inject. So I'll say private read only API URL, or I can say base API URL, and we can now go ahead and inject this API URL as token. We can import it there, API URL. So this is going to be my base API URL what I have, and now we need to do API call. So we need private read only HTTP client, or you can just say HTTP. You can just inject HTTP client. Now let me define a type what I need here. So basically what I know, right, so we need to have a type export type login request, and in that I need to pass username of type string and password of type string. And if I go back to this, like if you see the success URL, so if the response is true, then I'm getting a token which is off. So I can do one more thing here. I say export type login response, and I can just say token of type string, and that's all. Right now just go in the bottom, and here I can pass the login request, and this is what I think it has. So it has base API URL, which is going to be my fake store. I think it was fake store like that /auth/login, and this is what we are just returning, that hey, this is my login response, what we get after login, and we are passing the URL and the request. Let's also try to do it for the request, register request. So if you go to the register, what we need, we have a add a new user, we say ID, username, email, and password. So let's go here and create the type port type register request, and what we need here is something different. Here we need username, email, password, and there was one more thing on the top which was ID, and ID was of type number. Okay, so this is my register request, and based on that I can also create that API. So register can pass the request, and this is what register request, right? So here if you go back to the register request, so this is what we have, the API URL. We have fakestoreapi.com/user, and this is what my URL is, the base URL. Just to confirm the base URL, this is the one, fakestoreapi.com/users, and we are doing a post call to do the register, right? And this is the type. I think this is actually adding the class, which is wrong. If you go back to see what is the payload you get the same kind of request back if the add user is success, or you can say register is success. So we can go ahead and use the same type. Okay, now I can say that my API endpoint is ready. Now let's try to understand the flow what we need here. So if I try to picturize them what is really required now, that so there will be a flow. So if you remember, now we have a button on the UI which is related to sign in. So the moment user clicks on sign in, basically we need to dispatch an action. So we will dispatch an action, okay, and that action is going to be login, and there is a high chance that you can get two events out of it. So the one event will be either you will get login success if everything goes well, or else you will get login failed, right? So this is the event what you can expect, and same thing for the register. If the register is done, so it could be a success or it could be, which means now we have to get this kind of action create, right? And once we have this action, then what happens, right? Once the action is dispatched, something will happen. So when we are using this login, the login action will be used inside your, and I'll tell you how that will be. But one thing to note here, that whenever your action is executed, there is a high chance that there is some state changes. Okay, so there will be some state change, and that state change will be handled inside your features. Okay, and I'll talk more about this. Feature is basically a combination of your reducers, and this also gives you your select. So which means previously, right, whatever I taught in those last video, I was creating a separate reducer and a separate select. But now with this new latest NGRX way, I can directly create a feature now, and the feature will be responsible for creating me the reducers and the select. Means Now there will be one less file created for me. Okay, now let's try to see all of this into action. So as this is related to authentication, so there is a high chance that I want to share this auth related state across my application. So that's why I'm putting this inside my shared folder. I have this store, and let me create the first file related to auth, that is auth actions.ts, and inside that I will create a const export const auth actions, and I will be using something called as create action group, right? So this, in this action group, what it has, right, it will have a object, and inside the object you have a source, and that source will be related to what is actually you're going to do, like what kind of action this will store. So we are storing some action related to auth. So that's my source, and you will have some bunch of events. So this is how you put your events, and I'm going to start creating my events. Your first event could be your login, right? And in the once you are doing login, right, what is the property you need to pass to your action? So I want to pass a props called as username and password, and that's why it is called as props. So let me go ahead and quick fix it and import, right? So now I have a login, and as I told you, right, I could also have two more events called as login success. If the login is success, we are passing a props with a property called as token. Like once the login is done, the backend sends you token, and that token you can basically pass it to this event, right? If something goes wrong, then you will have a login failure, and we can basically send an error message, and this could be of type string. I don't want to put that. Okay, so this is your login related act. Let me also, in the meantime, let me create it for register. So for register, if you remember, right, we have username, email, password. I think we also have ID. If let me put that here. So ID of type number, and I'm just trying to follow the same pattern what the fake store API is telling. So again, just to come back here, so I'm just trying to follow the same pattern what they have. They say it is a required, and you need all. Currently we don't have hold on this request schema, because this is not by us, this is by this particular people who is developing or maintaining. So I'm just trying to follow them because I didn't have time to create back. Right, so let's go back and take a look. So if the register is success, you again get back this property, right? Or just in case if you don't want to use this property because we are just faking the registration, so what I will suggest you that we can go with something called as empty props. So we don't need any properties, so we can use this empty props. Okay, and I'll tell you why I used empty props. Okay, and this maybe I can get rid of this because we already have a type created, which is register request, okay, which has ID, username, password, right? If I'm not wrong, let's go and check. Exact ID, username, email, and password, and that's what. So let's go back here, and we can say that we are pretty much done with our actions, because now we are using action group and we are trying to group all our actions. Okay, now the next file what we have to create is the feature. So we can create a auth feature.ts. So inside this, right, we need to create a type first, like what kind of state you are storing. So I can say export type auth state, and in this auth state I can store my token, which is of type string or null. I can also store the user ID just in case if I want to fetch something out of it. So I can store username, user ID, and I can also store some error, right? And just in case we can also store something called as is loading state, which is a boolean. Okay, now first thing first, what you need to initialize your state. So let me do that. So this is my initial auth state, and I'll tell you where this is required. Okay, so this is just you are trying to start with your feature where you need to define the state, and also you need to initialize the value of your auth state. Now this is the correct time for us to create the feature here. So let me create that export const, and we can say, we can say auth, and to create the feature we have something called as create feature. Okay, and again inside that we will have an object where we have to define the name. So let's give a name as this is a auth feature, and then you can basically make use of something called as reducer here, and this is how you're trying to create a reducer now inside your feature. So this is the reducer, and to create a reducer we have a create reducer, okay, utility what you get from NGRX/store. Okay, and this reducer has to be like this. So you open up the bracket, you press enter, and here the reducer needs a initial auth state, and that's why we have created this on the top. So now once you have your initial auth state, now you can listen to some event. Okay, and if you are coming from Node.js background, or if you know about WebSockets and all of those people, when they want to catch some event, they make use of something called as on. Okay, and we are going to use similar thing. So we are say on, which is coming from NGRX/store, and in this on we are going to listen some action. So our first action is auth actions, which we have created. We can say dot login success. Okay, which means whenever my login is success, I will have my initial state and I'm going to restructure, and I can put here that, okay, so if my login is success, I can get a token, and I can also get here the user ID if it is success, correct? And here we can have it like this, and inside that we can use our object and we can initialize, we can restructure the state, and we can pass in the value. For example, we can pass the token, we can pass the user ID, and we don't need to pass error because already it is initialized as null, and we can say is loading as false. Okay, or if you remove this, then also it is taking as a false only, right? Because that's what my initial value was, and I am just trying to restructure the state here. I think one thing what I have missed here is the user ID, which I still don't have. So maybe I can get rid of this for now. And yeah, let me get rid of from here as well. And yeah, I think now it is fine now. Okay, so now we have login success with prop as token. Let's go back to the feature. Yeah, everything looks good to me now. Okay, let's save the changes. So this is the first action what we will listen. The second action is going to be a failure. So let me put it here directly. And let me show it to you what exactly. So this is the failure, right? So whenever your login gets failed, you just say the token is null and you pass in the error whatever you got. Okay, so this is also suggesting me to add a login, which I can add to make use of the loading state. So let me do that. So now I have another action, right, which is related to login. If the login is initiated, I can enable this is loading as, and that's all what I can do at the moment. Let me also handle the register state. So we can say on exactly auth action that register. We can say is loading as true. If the register is success, we can say false. And if the register is failure, we can say, hey, the loading is false, and we just specify what error we. I know this could be a bit confusing to understand initially, but I'm just trying to listen to action, and based on the action, I'm just updating the state. And this is what your reducer is responsible for. Okay, the moment you create all your auth features, your selector is automatically created out of the, and I will show you about how this selector got created in a moment. So now let's go ahead and focus on the effect, because your feature is ready, which handles your selector and ready. Now we need someone to do the API call, and with NGRX way, that guy name is effect. So we have auth effect.ts file, and inside that I can create an effect by saying export const, and I'm a big fan of functional effects, so I will be creating a functional effect. Okay, so we have export const, the name is login effect, and to create an effect we say create effect, and I'm not sure why. Okay, I think I know what's the reason. So now we want to make use of create effect, but this effect is a separate package. So now we need to install a new package in our application. Let me close this application, and we say npm install NGRX effect, and I need to use -- force, and let's do that. So now this will install the new package for us. Okay, that has been installed successfully. Now maybe I can quickly import. Okay, it's still not allowing me to do, so I have to do the manual import. So let's say import from NGRX effect, and the name will be create effect. Okay, so now we have our create effect ready. Same thing, will have a register effect, which we will do afterwards. So let me comment this out. Thank you AI for helping me. So this is how your create effect looks like, and inside that you will create this bracket, and here you are going to have something called as actions. Okay, and this action you have to inject. So we will say inject actions, and you also need to do the API call, right? And you have created the auth API, so I also have to do the injection. So whatever injection you need to do, you can do inside this. So you have auth API. Now just in case if you want to do some routing, right? For example, after doing the login, you want to route it to the dashboard or product page. So for doing the routing, you can also inject something called as router. So this is how you can do inject router from Angular / oh, I did some, yes, this was inject and this was route. Okay, so now we have all these three things. Now what we say, we will have this lambda kind of thing, and then we say return the action. So we say action dot pipe. As I told you, right, this is heavily uses RxJS internally, so that's what we are making use of. This is an observable, and we are saying pipe. Okay, and inside this pipe you will have something called as off type. Basically this off type listens to your action. And what action we had, the action name was login actions. Oh, this was not login, this was auth actions dot login. So we are listening to this of type auth login dot auth. Okay, if we have this, right, then we can make use of switch map, or you can use map here also, that is also fine. And inside this you can get access of this username and password, or you can say that you have a login model here. Okay, and here you can basically say return, exactly this is what AI gave me. You can just say return auth API dot login, and this login accepts a request which is going to be your login model. Okay, I can make it basically change this to login request and change this also to login. Okay, and again we can make use of pipe here, and we can use switch map here, or we can also use map, that's not a problem. And then what we can do, right, I think AI already suggested everything. So here you can see, right, now we have the switch map used, we say return, this is what the API call will happen. We are having a pipe, we do a switch map, and we got a response, and the response has a true, and that's what we have just added here, and that's how we are trying to return the action. And I'm not sure if we need this array, so let me get rid of that. And also if you need to catch error, so that you can be handled by this catch error, and here you can also return that, hey, your login failure, right? We also had one more action which passes the property of the error message, because this login failure expects a error of type string, and that's what we are trying to pass as a message. Okay, and also this is been created, your login effect has been created. What you can do, right, you can basically come here and say that this is going to be my functional effect, so this is functional true. Okay, and this is what I had here. Now let's try to identify what is this error and why is it not helping me. Let me use map here. Okay, and we have this error which we are trying to return, and this has to be an observable, and this is not an observable. See, yes, so what you can do, you can cut this, and we can make use of operator, and you can pass in it like this. So now this also becomes an observable, what you need to return with this action. So now I can say that my login effect is ready, which is responsible for doing the API call and updating my state by calling this action. First action is login success, and another action, if it fails, then it is login failure, and based on that I'm updating the state of my auth state. Okay, this is what I had for login effect. Let me also go in the meantime and do it for register, because I think they both look similar to me. Let me uncomment this. We have this create effect. Again, this is very easy to do. Now let me try to make use of AI. So let's see what AI suggests me. Okay, of type register, we have a switch map, we do the registration, we make use of map, and okay, if the registration is done, if it is success, we go to the login page with an action like this. If it fails, you send the message, and that's pretty much it, I guess, and you just mark this as functional true. So basically, let me try to explain you what this AI did. AI just tried to understand what I did here for login effect, and he replicated something similar for register. Here you can do your dependency injection, so you get your actions, and this basically catch an action of type register if register was dispatched. Then based on that, it use the switch map, because this is then observable we are using inside the pipe. It get access to your register request, sends it to this API call while doing the registration. If your registration is success, which comes inside this pipe, then it will take you to the login page, and it will invoke the action called as register success. And if you see, there is no property inside this, because if you remember, when I said register success, there was empty props, which means don't pass any property, just call this that hey, this is done. And if you see for the error, right, for error we are passing a property which is called as error, and this error is of type string, and this is what the message is also of type string. So that's what we are able to pass here, and that's how we have created the login and register effect. So now you need to pass. So now I can say that your code wise, I think we are pretty much good. Now we need to register them that hey, now I have a feature and I also have an effect. So where you can register them, right? So for me, I want them inside the app config. So this will be at application level. Okay, we already have a provide store that we are using in NGRX. We can say here that I want to provide effect. So we have this, and inside that you need to call your login effect. Okay, and just in the bottom you will have another one which is provide state, and in the provide state what you have, you can put your auth feature. Okay, let's go on the top and let's see how the import has been done. So for the login effect, what you can do, right, you can just copy this and you have to just say import star as login effect. I think we can get rid of this login effect, which is incorrect because we are using functional one. So that's why I think this login effect can do the job and it has access of all the files inside this auth effect. Okay, so maybe here we can say it as auth effect, and this auth effects I can put it over here. Okay, which means you're trying to import whatever effects you have inside this auth as this name suggests. And anyway, you need to provide the state. So for that you need to add your feature what you just have created. Okay, so once these two things is done, so now you can actually see the magic of NGRX2. Now let's try to see, right, if I try to do login, does that do the API call or not? So to do the API call, let's go inside the login.ts, and inside that you have to do some inject. So let me do that here, and I'll say private read only store, and you need to inject your store. Let me see if the input was correct. Yes, this is correct, and now we have a store. So now with this store, whenever you want to do submit, you want to basically dispatch your store. So can you see now this is already giving me the example how to do that. So it's very simple. You say this dot store dot dispatch, and in the dispatch you can call your action by saying auth actions dot login, and if you remember, your login expects a prop, and that prop is nothing but your value. So you can say this dot login form dot value, and that should be it, which means if your form is valid, you want to dispatch an action to do the login here. And now just in case if you want to also disable the login button, right, hey, the login is initiated, so you can also inject some state. You can say protected read only. Why I use protected? Because I want to use this on template. You can also go with public, that's fine. So you have protected read only is loading, and you can just call your state. So what you need to do, you need to say this dot store dot select, and inside the select you have your auth feature dot, can you see now you have select is loading, and this is how you can grab it. Okay, but if you hover on this, this is going to be an observable of boolean, so you can convert this into a signal. And to do that, if I am not wrong, there is something called as to signal. Okay, so the moment you add these two signal, you have to import this. Let me see if my IntelliSense helps me to import the correct path. It is not, so let's go on the top, and here I can mention import to signal from, oh, this is incorrect, @Angular /core from RxJS interop, if I'm not wrong, or maybe I'm making a mistake. Okay, so this comes from core /RxJS interop. So we have this two signal. Okay, now what this will do, this will convert this observable into a signal, and now this signal I can use it somewhere over here. Where is that button? It's over here. So we have sign in, right, and we can say if it is invalid or if it is loading. If this is the state, then please do this. Let me also grab this in the bottom, and because I need to change this logic here, I will use interpolation, and I will say if it is loading, then signing in, or else it is sign in, right? Let's see why is it breaking here. Okay, because boolean and undefined is not assignable. Okay, so this could also be an undefined. So let me go inside this app button, and I can change it now here to undefined as well, and that can make it happy. If I'm, yeah, so it's happy now, and here you can see. Now let's see what really happens. So for that we need to run the application ng-dev. Let's go to your app, and I want to start with the log. So to do the login, you'll say Sashi, you haven't registered, then how can you get a login user? So that is also very simple. I can go to this get all user, and I can basically call this API endpoint just on the right. Here I can find some list of users who has a username, which is this. I think I can copy the password. Username is easy to understand. So John D is the username, and password I have already copied. So I go here, the name is John D, and the password is what I have pasted. And now you can see, right, if it does API call or not. I hope it does, or else we need to check what went wrong. So let me minimize this, right? Let's click on sign in. So can you see now it changes to sign in, and after the successful sign in, I came to a page where I have this header, footer, and the products page. And if you see the login API, right, I was able to successfully do the login, and this is what I got from the user. And if let's try to decode this token, and let's see what this token had. Copy this jwt.io, and we can paste the token, and we can see that this token has sub, which is your user ID, user, which is your username, and this IAT, which is nothing but going to be your expiry time. Okay, so that's what we have now, and now we are able to successfully do the login by using NGRX. So we used NGRX effect, we also used NGRX feature, and we also used the reducer and as well as the selector. So if you see now, I was talking about the selector will get out of the box, and this is what I just mean. Like if you see, if you call auth feature dot, you can see all set of properties you can use. You can use auth state, you can use error, you can use ease loading, select token, and user ID. And this is what I was basically talking about. Okay, now just in case if thing went fast, what I can do, right? So can you see now, again the state is showing sign in, which is not correct, because we needed to change back the login state, right? That is loading to again false, and that could be done inside your success. So can you see now, this is the problem what I had. Now I'm trying to show you, by showing a problem, I'll trying you how you can fix it in NGRX. So what went wrong? You know what, you go inside your auth feature, because that's where your state gets handled. So whenever your login is success, right, you need to make sure that you are making the is loading as false, that hey, your login got success, now you don't need loading anymore. Now let's try to show you again. If I say John D password, I hope I have pasted, this is the wrong password, I need to take it again from here. Let me grab this password, let's go back and put. So now what I'll do, I'll just use the slow 3G so that the API request takes time. And if I click on sign in, so can you see now, my API is pending, and I saw the sign in button, and the moment I got 201, so it again went back to enabled state. And if it is enabled, which means now if I again go back here, you should be able to see that sign in again. It is not showing any more signing in, now it is sign in state, which is the previous state what we want, right? So this is how we have implemented the APIs. Now let me also do the same thing for register. So let's go to the register form, and now you already know like how things becomes easy if you are using NGRX. So you need first your store. So you say public read only store, you can say inject store. So this import is done. Let me also get this interop, and we also need to import this auth feature so that we can get the loading state, right? Now if you want to do the submit, again things becomes easy, right? You just say this dot store dot dispatch. Okay, this is so wrong. You don't have to say feature, you have to say auth action, which you have to import now. Okay, auth action dot register, and during the registration you want to pass the register form value. Okay, but now if you take a look, right, the property, the form value what we have is very different. So it has username, email, password, and confirm password, and that is incorrect, which means we need to first try to make this correct. So how we can do that? Maybe I can get rid of all this if else, because we are already disabled the button. So let's try to first create an ID, and ID can be created by using this random number generator, which is date.now, which always generates a random number. If you hover on this is of type number, and it generates a random number based on that current time and second. Okay, now let me do the destructuring. So I'll say cons, and from the value I want to do destructuring. So I want to remove the confirm password, and I want to keep the rest of my field. Okay, so this will remove the confirm password out of it. Now I can say let's create our register request. Okay, so this will be my ID and the rest of the field, and that's pretty much it. Now I can directly go and dispatch this. Now can you see, now it has username, email, password, and ID, and we have removed the confirm password out by using this destructuring pattern. Now let's save the changes, and let's take a look at the UI. But before that, let me also do one small thing here, and that is going to be related to my register. So here I can remove this, and if it is loading, we say registering, and we can also add is loading here to disable the button. So let's save the changes. Let's go back, and we need to again take it back to no throttling so that slowness gets removed. Here we create a username. Okay, we create an email ID. We have a strong password. We also create one more password, and the button gets enabled. Now let me do this slow 3G throttling so that you can see that how the states are getting changed. Okay, now take a look at this register. If I click register, I see registering now, and the state is pending. Once the API call is done, it becomes 201, and we came to the login page. Right, we just came to the login page because that's what the logic was. If the registration is successful, you again came back to sign in page and you do the login. If you see the API call, right, the API call was success, and here you see we have passed this particular payload, and this is what the ID was generated. This is the date time.now. This is a random number which got generated, and this is what the response we got. Like they just pass in some random ID, and this is one for us. Okay, and that's why the registration was done. And this is what basically I had for you guys. So now after login is success, we have to maintain the state of the user, that hey, the user is logged in, and you already know that after the login success we are getting a token, so which means we need to store that token in our local store. storage so that we can persist the user state or user session. So for that I will be creating a new service to basically help me to do the storage. So let me go and create that storage.ts and let me paste the files what I had already. So we have this storage class called as storage. Maybe we can change it to local storage, or maybe we can say storage service is not a good name because we don't have to use the prefix, or maybe we can just keep it as storage, or let's give it as my storage. Okay, just to so that we are not contradicting any name, because I remember there is something called as storage already, if I'm not wrong. So let's see, I put this a service name as my storage, and in that I have set item, get item, remove item and clear, which basically are using the local storage to do my job, right? So now what happens during our effect, that whenever the login was success, I want to store the token inside my local storage. Okay, and just in case if you also want to access the user ID, so that also can be done. If you remember, if I go back to this fake store API and if I am successfully logged in, I got a token, and in this jwt.io website, when I decrypted my token, I saw that I have a sub which is referring to my user ID, and I also have a user which is referring to my user. So for example, you remember, right, if you want to fetch a user profile, so for that maybe it's a good time for us to handle this state to store it somewhere, correct? So now what I want to do here, that let's go ahead first and store the token. And to use the storage service, we say storage and we inject my storage, right? And if the login is success, just over this line we can say storage.set item, and we can give this as NGRX store, or maybe say NGRX store token. Okay, and we are just storing this particular guy. Maybe now what also I need to do, right, we have to extract this token, correct? So to extract this token, because if you remember, right, I want to extract the token and I want to get these values. So for that maybe I can write a new util service. So let's go and create a util somewhere over here in the shed, and let's give the name as extract token.ts, and we can write the function here by saying export const extract token. Let me see if my AI can help me. Let's see what it suggests. So it gave me some bunch of things which maybe I can use, but there is something I was interested in, ATOB, which basically helps me to decrypt the tokens. So let me go ahead and make use of that. Let me have a try catch, and I'll tell you why I use try catch here, because I will be using ATOB. If anything fails, it can return a null value. So we can have a const payload base 64. Exactly, this is what I wanted, and this is going to be my token, not auth header of type string, and this guy can return what I wanted. I wanted two things, right, as a payload. Let me create a type. We can say export type as payload, and in the payload we can have a sub of type number and user of type string. Okay, so this guy can return me either a payload or it can return null, right? So this is what I have. So I can split the token, you know, right? The first part is where we have the payload, and let's get the payload as JSON, and we make use of ATOB to basically extract this as a JSON, and now we get the exact payload by parsing it again back to an object. Okay, and this is what we have our payload. Okay, and if something goes wrong during that operation, we can throw an error or we can return a null. So here, if you just in case you want, you can just say console.error failed to extract the token payload, and that's all. Okay, and this extract token you can use inside your store in the effects. So here what I'll do, right, just after this we can say extract. So we can say const payload equals extract the token, and we can say response.token, and inside that you have the payload here. But you remember, right, we have to store that as an user ID as well. So what we can do, right, let's go back to your login success. Remember I was talking about storing one more object, one more property called as user ID, and this user ID will be your payload.sub, because if you remember, right, sub is your user ID and user is your username. I know it's a bit confusing too basically, but this is not correct because there is a high chance it could be null as well. So let me handle that state. So let's get rid of this and have a super easy if else condition. If there is a payload, then we can return this, or else we don't need, because we can directly say and return the action by giving the error, but it's not correct. We can pass in the payload. We can say here user ID, and this is going to be payload.sub, and if it still fails, we can pass a success, but this time we just give the token. We will just share the token whatever we have, and we pass user ID as null. Okay, now this is complaining for user ID because we need to add it in the action props. So if the login is success, we pass user ID of type number or null. Okay, and the error just vanishes, and we can store this user ID. I'll tell you why this is important, because we also have a page which is called as profile page, where we need to fetch the user based on the ID, and there this guy will play a very important role. I think now it is right time for us to do the testing, whatever we have did till now, that whenever we are doing the sign in or the login, that the token is getting stored inside the local storage inside your browser, right? So to write the username and password, I again need to go here and check, okay, what is the password. So maybe what I can do now, that I can define this values already here. So let's open up your Visual Studio and go inside your login file, and here I can define the password and also define the user, who is John D. Okay, let's save the changes. Let's go back, and now this will already paste these two username and password for us. Now let's open up the inspect and click on sign in. So the moment I click on sign in, I came to the product page. Let's go in the application, and here you can see, right, we have this NGRX storage .to, and we have this particular token here. Okay, and this is what the token we have to basically use to persist that, hey, the user is already logged in. Okay, which means now things are working fine. There is only one small missing piece, that there was nothing we were notifying that your login was success. So there was no pop-up on the top. So for that, let me go ahead and use one of my package, which is ng Angular pop-up. This is what I have recently published. It was 2 days ago, 2.1 version. Let me go ahead and copy this. I'm not sure if it is getting copied or not. So let's copy this and let's go to your Visual Studio, Control C, and let's paste. So we have this npm install ng Angular pop-up. Or maybe we still have to upgrade it to the version 22. So maybe that's why it is still oh, or maybe it is because of the NGRX effect. Yes. So basically we have this peer dependency, right, for this NGRX effect, and that's why it breaks. So maybe what we can do, we can just make use of legacy peer dips, maybe that, yeah, and the package got installed. Now you need to use the package. So for that, there is one step what you can follow here. So you need to say that, hey, provide ngtoast. So let's grab this, go inside your app.config, put it here, and in the bottom you can just say provide ngtoast, and in this ngtoast you have some configuration, like you can give something called as duration. Let's keep it as 2 seconds. We have positions, which is important. Here you have option to put, I can put maybe top right, and you can also give minimum width and maximum width here if you want, like how much size you need. So you can put it here just as a number, so you can put like 250 as a minimum width. Okay, so this is how you have added this toast, and now you go inside the HTML and you need this ngToast selector. So let me add this, and this selector basically comes from a class which is ngToast component, and I think that's pretty much it what we needed. Now what you need to do, let's run the application again, and let's go back to your auth effect. So over here we will import inject another service, which is ngToast, and let's inject this ngToast service, and this toast, maybe let's name it to just toast. And now what happens if your login is success, you can show a message toast.success. This is not that complicated. You just need to put here your message that login is success, and you can also put a title that welcome back, or maybe you can just put this as a success title. So it's success. Okay, and same thing if you want to like say that, hey, something went wrong. So I think for that, in the catch error, you can put it something like this, danger, and you can say login failed with the error type. Same thing can be done here. So once you do the routing, you can say registration successful, and you need to first inject, add it here as toast, inject ngToast. That's all. If something goes wrong, you can also put here as toast.danger, registration failed, and save the change. Now let's go back and see our beautiful sign in. Now if you click on sign in, your expectation is that you got this beautiful looking toaster there on the right. Okay, if you click again, can you see now you got this toaster which says login is success, right? And now then you come to your products page, where you need to still design your header, footer, and the products page. So let's go inside your header.ts file. What I have, node snippet, and this is just for header, where we have this name. I can change it to NGRX2. Okay, Let's save the changes, and here we have logout, profile, and there is some cart button as well. Let's save and go back to see how it. So here if you see, right, we have this NGRX store, we have this logout, profile, and this button here. And if you remember, right, we are using this app button. So for that I need to go and do the import. Inside the imports array you should have button and save. You also have router link, so let me also add router link, and now let's save the changes. So after saving the changes, what I see, right, we have a logout, profile, and here we don't have any icon, and I will be showing you what kind of icon we are going to use, because here the icon is missing and it's just showing me this particular. Maybe I can put here as cart, save the changes, and now you can see, now this is what my cart is, and there we are showing this 10 items. Okay, let me also do it for the footer. So inside the footer, again, let me remove everything what you see here and paste it with the content what I already have. Again, I told you guys can go and use AI to generate such a header and footer for yourself, or else you can pause the video and you can basically write it down by yourself. Let's go back, and here I can see that we have a very good looking footer where we have GitHub link, and this X means the Twitter link, and in the center we have the products page written. Now what I want, right, I always want my footer to be in the bottom. For that, what I can do, let's go inside your main layout, and just over here I can wrap this router outlet into a div, and here I can have a class which says that this is going to be my flex1 container, and I'll say mx auto so that the contents are in center. And let's go back. So now we have the content always in the center, right? And just over here, as we are not using any div, so we can make use of host class, and inside this class we can add this minimum height screen. We can have a flex and make use of flex goal. bg slate maybe not required, so let's just have this. And now if you see, right, the moment I add this height screen and flex goal, and this always is a flex one which takes all the space, and that's how it has divided it into two parts. So this is my flex one what you see, and that is nothing but my router outlet content. For example, if I go from here to profile page, so this takes me profile page. Let's see if this works. File cart, yes, so we can go to profile cart, and we can also go to the products page. But can you see now, if I click this, I always come to this slash blank page, and I'm not able to see the product. So to fix that issue, let's go to your routes, and inside the route here in the children I can have a path, and if my path is blank we can redirect to the products page. And let's save the change. Let's go back. Now if you see, if the path is blank, it takes me to the products page, goes to profile, and also it goes to cart. So now let me take a moment and start designing the profile page as well. So for that, let's go here in the profile, and I think this is missing something. I think I have missed it on all the places. Change detection strategy. Yeah, it is already imported, that's fine. Now we can get rid of all this template code, and I can put my own template code where I will be using Lucid icon, which I have not yet added, so but I will be adding it very soon. So let me get rid of all the icons at the moment so that my application doesn't break, and you guys can see what I have as a template code. So if I save this, saving is done, and there you go. So we will be having something like this profile page, where we can show the username. Sorry, this is the name of the user, the username, the email information, phone, user, and the some address. Okay, so this is what we wanted to design. And before that, as you already saw, that we need some icons to be okay, and we are also using some button here. So I can do import, and in the import we can add buttons. Okay, don't worry guys, I will be already pushing all of these code on GitHub, so you can find the code snippets there as well if you, but it will not have the exact snippet what you see at the moment. Okay, so let me find if I'm using any button component so that we can apply the button there. I don't think so we are using, so I think I can get rid of this at the moment. Sorry. Yeah, so now this is right time for me to install a package, and that package is going to help me a lot for the icon related thing. So there is a very famous package from Lucid icon. So let me go there in the terminal and install it. So npm install, and I need to use 4 so that it doesn't complain because of NGRX effect and NGRX store. So the package got installed. Now to use those packages, let's go inside your header, and I think we need Angular Lucid dual, maybe no, so I think it's Lucid Angular. So let's search Angular. It's not helping me, so let's head and do it manually. So import from from Sid Angular, and now it should help me now. Sid, yes, Angular module. Same thing I can put here, and I can start to. For example, if I have a logout button, so I need to use a logout. I want to use a user icon, so I can say user. Also have a shopping cart, so I can have this shopping cart icon. So if you want to use all of these icons, so you just go in the bottom and you have to call them as a property. So protected read only icons, this is what you have, and you can just go and call icon dot, and just you can call all of them there, right? So but this is not enough, so let's go on the top. Let's see where we have logout, and just above the logout we can use lucid icon. You have this image, and you can say icons dot logout, and you can specify a size what you need. Maybe I can give a smaller size, okay, and let some margin on the right so that we have some space between logout and this icon. So same thing for the profile, we can add this icons.user, and here for the cart as well, we can, I think we can get rid of this cart and directly add icon with the same size. Okay, let's save this, and we need to run again the Angular app. Let's go back, and the header should change now. So in the header we have this icons, we have this profile, and we have this cart, which is a great. Same thing we can do for the footer. So let's go to the footer. Let's import the module, and we need one GitHub icon, and we also need a Twitter icon. Okay, and these two icons should come from here, Twitter. I think those two are deprecated, maybe that's why it is complaining me. Okay, let me use it over here. So let's go back, and let's say protected read only my icons. Let's go here on the top, I can get rid of this, I can put this, and I can put Twitter as well. Save the changes, so your footer will also reflect now those two icons. And let's go inside the profile, and here we need email, phone, and username icon, and this is the ed. So let's go to profile, seed Angular module. We need mail, phone for the phone number. We have a user, and we also have a address. I think for that we have map pin. Okay, and all of this we are going to use it over here. So let's also create this protected read only. Use all this icon. Here we can put the icon inside this box what you see. So we say lucid icons with the image, map pin. We also have this space empty. This is for user, this is for phone, and the last one is for email. So this is all we had, and now if you go back, so you can see all of those icons are working fine, and everything are getting in place. So now we have a profile page. We also have a cart page which we still need to design, which we will do in the later part. And then we have this beautiful product page. So let's start with our products page, and let me get rid of everything whatever we have till now, and let's see where is this product things. So here in this product, here we have the component already ready, but we didn't have any design. But before designing it, let's try to fetch all the data, and that will basically come from the API. And let me show you how the API looks like. So go here on the products API. This is the product, get all product, and if you copy this link, go here and paste. Here you can find the list of product, which is around 20 products, and every product has a rating with rate and count, like how many count you got. Maybe we need to create a type of it, so I'll just copy this and make use of a website called JSON2TS. Okay, let's open up this, and let's paste everything here, and this is what I needed. You can copy this. Let's go inside your products, and here I'll create a folder called as types, and in that I will create product type.ts. You can paste it. We can say this is my product, and this is going to be my rating, which is fine, and I always prefer to have it as a type, not interface. Yeah, the changes has been made here as well. Now to do the API call, I will be having a service right close to my product, so I'll create a services, and this is going to be my product API.ts. So we can say export class product API, and this is going to be my service. So to create a service, again use injectable. Here we have provided in. Okay, so now let me put the code, which is very much easy to understand. So here we already have base API URL, so I can do all sort of missing imports. I have API URL, which is my base, then I have HTTP client, and then I created a method called as get product, and over here it is doing the call to this particular endpoint which I just now showed you, which is this, right? api.com/product. Now let's go back to the code, and here we have to basically start creating our store, and now the store is not going to be shared, and this will be only responsible to share data inside this layer. So that's why now here my store will sit. So let me create the store folder, and inside this I will have my product action. So I can say product actions.ts. This will also have my effect to do the API call. So I'll say product effect.ts, and the store will also be responsible for managing my Redux and Selector. So for that we use product feature.ts. Okay. So now let's start things off with your product action. So we will follow the same pattern what we did for auth. So again, let's export const. This is going to be my product actions, and inside that we have to create a action group. Okay, and this action group should have a source. The source is going to be my product, and this will handle some events. And again, these events are pretty much straightforward. So we can have three kind of events, right? The load product, the load product success, and the load product failure. Okay, so we can paste the name like this, and when we load the product we don't have to pass any props because this is just a pure get request. And then if the product load is success, we can add this product as a props to basically maintain the state, and if something goes wrong we can say it as fail and we can pass the error message. Okay, one thing what I didn't like here, maybe we can change the name it to just load, because this is product, so this is loading product for sure. This is understandable, and I can basically remove all of those. So we have a load, we have load success and load failure for the products. Okay, now this is my action, so we have to go and create the feature to maintain the state. So I'll go in the feature, and first thing first, you have to create a type which is nothing but your product state. So this is how the product state will look like. This has a product, the error state, and the loading. Maybe, yeah, that's fine, I guess. So let's go ahead and import this type, which we just now created inside the types folder. And you remember, right, we need to initialize our. So let's go here and put the initial product state. This is how it should look. And now we can go ahead and create our feature. So we can write export const product feature, and let's create the feature. So we have this create feature, and again inside that we can give the name as product, and here we will create a reducer. So for that we have this function called as create reducer, and in the create reducer we first need to give the initial product state, and then we can listen to all the action by using on. So we first have on product action dot load. So when the product loads, what we will do, we will take the state and we will make sure that we have the initial state, which is the state, and we'll make sure the loading becomes true. So we will make the loading as true. Okay, because we have just now started to load the product. Okay, and the error is by default null there. Second thing is, once you get the product, the load is success, you basically add here. So you're listening to this product action.load success, you have your state, and then you restructure the product, and whatever user has passed this as a prop, you can access the prop and you can put it over here. So basically you could directly do it like this, but as the name are same, so you can get rid of this property name. Okay, as we have the name as S here already. Correct, product, and loading will become false and there is no error. For load failure, we will have loading as false, and we also assign the error here, and here the products will be null, which is already part of this particular state. And this is what basically we had as a reducer. So if you already know that, if you want to access the selector, so that is already part of this feature. So this is the power of using a feature in NGRX. Now we need to prepare our product effect. Let me go ahead and create this as well. So export const product effect, and here we make use of this create effect. Now I think my AI is already aware, so this guy can help me with a lot of intelligence. Let's see if he is able to do it or not. So we first need to get this action injected, and we have to do the API call. So for that we have product API, which we have to inject. Okay, and after that we'll just add this and say return your action pipe. We will listen to something called as off type. So we will try to listen to this off type product action dot load, and let's make use of the switch map, and inside that we have to just say return the products API dot get products, and we can make use of pipe, and here we can use map operator. You can still go with switch map if you know how to use those switch map thing. And here you have your pipe, which will have your product, and this is going to return your product action dot load success, and that's pretty much it. So this will basically going to load your product. So whatever you got from the API, you access them here, and that's what you pass to the load success action. Okay, and once this action is executed, it goes to your feature, and whenever the load success happens, you take the product and you will initialize the state over here, which is this product. Okay, now let's again go back to this, and let's also handle if there is any error. So we have this catch error, and in the catch error you can basically go and return it like so. If you don't want to go with these boxes, I always prefer using the off to basically convert it into an observable, and that's pretty much it. And one thing also to note here, that as we are using a functional effect, so you have to tell here as functional true, and that's all. So now we can say that we have an action to load the product, we have effect to fetch the API, and we also have a feature to manage our state for this particular product. Now you know, right, this state has to be only used inside this product related. So how you can manage that? So I don't want to pass it globally, right, to everyone. So now there is also a way by which you can do it. So what you can do, right, so you go inside your routes and you need to make sure that this state is only provided inside this route, which is product, which loads your product. So here you have something called as provider. So in the providers you say provide state, and here you can actually call your feature, which is product feature. Okay, you also have a effect, so you can say provide effect, and you can call your effect here, which is product effect. Okay, so this will cause an error because you know, right, what you have to do, you have to say import star as product effect, and that's all. The moment you save the changes, I think so everything should work completely fine. Now this is a right time for us to do the testing. Okay, to do the test, what I'll do, I'll go inside my product component, and here I can call the state. So let's do the calling. So I will say protected, I'll say private, this as private read only, we have store, and we can say inject store. Let me go and import. Okay, and here we have to use on init. I'll tell you the why we need to use on init. That there should be someone who is basically responsible to load the action, right? So you remember, right, we have to load an action. This is a bad practice. Put it on the top, so let me place it below this. Okay, now whenever the ng on init is called, I'm going to call my store dot dispatch, and in the dispatch I will call my action, which is product actions dot load, and that's all. Which means this guy is going to call the load action, and this load action going to trigger my effect, which is over here. And this effect is going to do the API call, and during the API call, it is going to maintain the state by calling the load success act. Okay, let's go back here. Now we need to access the state. So for that, we don't need to create selector, as I told you. We can use feature. So for that, we can say provide private read, not private, this time it's going to be protected read only, you have product, and we can just simply say this dot store dot select, and we have product feature dot select product. Okay, and if you remember, we can, this is an observable, so if you want to wrap it into, you want to create it as a signal, so you can say to signal, and you can put your observable inside. Now if you want to show like how does it look like, so let's go on the top. I think we have pre, and we can show this as a JSON. Let me use JSON pipe to show you that are we able to fetch the data or not. Okay, so we added the JSON pipe, save the changes, and let's go back to the product, to your page, NGRX store. So now can you see, now the moment you saw, like whenever we came on the product page, we are able to see that we have this product page title on the top, and just below this we are showing this via a JSON pipe. We have loaded all the list of product here, which is going to be around 20 products, what we just saw. Okay, now this is the right time for us to design our product card, because our product card should be able to show all of this information. That product card component, I went inside my core components. So here this is what I have as a product card, and I'm going to basically copy paste something from my code snippet so that it becomes easier for me to basically just go and explain, and rather than writing everything. So here this is what I have, and let me go ahead and import all the missing imports, what you see here. And I see a mistake here that it is importing component from a very wrong place. That is wrong. We import the correct place, and this should come from Angular/core, and that's pretty much it. I need to also fix this by adding something like this. Same for the alt. Let's see what else has to be fixed. So here we don't have the lucid icon React, so let me add it. So let's go here and use star. I think this is for rating what I have, and we need to create this read only, create a protected read only icon, which is star. and this is what I can say that my card component will look like. This is app product card. Here I am using some CSS to make things relative, and inside that I have an image, then have this category, if I'm not wrong, men's clothing. Then in the bottom we have the product title, then just over here we have the rating, like how many ratings user has given to it, like 3.9 rating given by 120 reviews. And here we have the price of the product, and then we have a button which is add to cart. Okay, just if you want to see this, how this things looks like, so maybe let me go and import and show it to you. Okay, to see this in action, I need to go inside my product. So let's go here in the pages, product, in the component. I can import this as product card, save the changes, and here in the selector I can go here and we can say app product card, and this complains because this guy need a product. So here we are just trying to give it as a first element, if I'm not wrong, and if it is undefined we can give this array. Doesn't take, so just because this could be undefined, so we need to check how we can get rid of that. So I think I know we can do something like this, but let's see if that make it work. Yes, because we know that there will be a product, so that's why we are not bothered that this will break. And anyway, I will be changing this logic. So let's save this and let's go back. And this is what I was talking about. So I have a product card where I have title, I have ratings, price, add to cart, and the product image with a category on the top. But I need to change this, right? So I need to make sure that all the state has been imported correct. So here if you see, we have the store, we are fetching the product, and we also need a loading state. So for that, let me create a product read only. We have this select loading. So now we need to design this whole page. So let's get rid. So we can have basically a div, and this div will contain my title, and there is something related to the search query which we will do in the later part. So this is what I basically have as a template, that I have a h1 which tells my product, and then I have another div which is basically holding my input. Okay, if I save it, let's try to see it one by one. So this is what I was talking about. We have a product, and then we have this search field. What I can do basically, let this, or maybe we can use host class. So let's have a host, we can have a class, and host class should have a padding. This looks so bad, this everything, and let me just have a padding on the top. That's all. So let's have a padding y as 8, and that's, I think that is more than enough. I think this is not even taking it. I don't know why. It should take. Or let's go ahead and do one more thing. If it is not taking, we check it later, what's going wrong there. So we have a div, and we can paste it here. Let's have a class which is py as 8. Yes, now it took, I don't know what went wrong with the host class, but that's fine, we can check it later. So this is what I wanted. I have a product title, and then I can search up, and just in the bottom I have to do some more logic. So first thing, we need to check if it is loading. Okay, so if my product is loading, then we can show something called as a loading, but for that let's have another div. We can use a p tag, and we can just say a loading product, and just to make this guy center, we can use class, we can use flex items center and justifies. And the next thing will be your another if. So this is going to be my another if, which says that if my product length is 0, and if it is not loading, which means no product found, right? So this we can make it like this. If the product length is 0, this is what also we can do. And let me also get rid of, I think it's fine. I think it's just asking me to, can you please use product card selector, which we will be using it very. So this is the second if, which basically tells about this. Or here we can make use of else, and in the else we have basically the grid which we can create. For small screen it is 1, for medium screen, okay, this looks good to me. And then we use the for loop, and inside the for loop we have this product. We can get rid of this let. We already have the if condition there. We need to make use of track, and we can say product.id. We don't buy. I don't know why AI is hallucinating a lot today. And then we have this product. We can also use self-closing tag, and this basically shows all my product with this for loop, the grid, whatever I'm using. And now let's save the changes and go, and this is what you see, right? So currently I'm able to see the list of 20 product, which is wrong because currently it's all static. So we need to design the product card to basically use all of this information. So first thing first, we have to update this, and we need to make it as product dot image, as this is a signal, so it's like this. We can make use of product.title, which is good. This should be changed by product.category. This could be changed by your product.title. This is my icon star, which is good. This should change to rating, my rating, and this should change to rating.count, like how many user give me the review, and that's pretty much it, I guess. So if you go back now, you can see all this information. You have title, you have all dynamic title, images, you also have this beautiful rating, prices and all. I think prices is still 120, so we need to fix it. Exactly, let's fix this product.price, and we can make use of currency pipe. So here and use currency, add here a current source, save the changes. Now you should also have a dynamic price, which basically shows everything. I think now we are successfully able to load all the products and also render them dynamically on this products page. Now next thing for us will be to do the query here, so that we can search about the product, and that will be implemented by using NGRX. So now our requirement is, right, whatever I type here, this should go ahead and filter the product based on that. Like for example, if I search about men's clothing, then it should only show me the products which are related to that, or which title basically matches with my search query. Okay, so this is what the requirement is, and we have to fulfill it by using NGRX store. For that, right, whatever event you see in NGRX, it is going to be an action. So whenever there is something happens, so we want to do a search, so we go inside your store in the action. Here we need to create another action called as search, right? And this will take a prop, which is going to be a query, or just to be very specific, we can say it as my search query. And now based on that, there will be a change in my state, because what happens currently, we just have one product to basically load our state. For example, when we load the product, we have 20 record, right? But now whenever you do some filtering, so you need to store, you need to filter out of this 20 and you need to store it somewhere, correct? So for that, we are going to update our product state to also have a filtered products, and this will store your filter record based on. If you also want to store the search query, that also you can do it here. Like, hey, if you want, whenever the search thing changes, if you want to store it, if you want to show it on the UI that, hey, this is what the search query was and this is what the product we found, so you can also store it like that, right? So this could be a string or this could be an, okay, and based on these two addition, we need to also update our initial state, so that also has been updated. So now what happens, right, whenever you are loading the product successfully, so you first you store the product already. Now you also need to update your filter product, and you need to assign the 20 product what you got from the API. Okay, and now just in the bottom of that, you will basically do your action. As I told you, right, whatever state management happens, whatever state you change, update, everything happens inside a reducer, and that reducer is now stored inside your feature file. So here we have this on, and we are going to listen to this search product action.search, and based on the state, we are basically restructuring it, and we have the search query. Now if you take a look here, right, it's very simple to understand. So now your search query is passed by the Angular from the component. You basically take your state. In the state you have your product, you are trying to do the filter from your product, and based on the filter what you do, right, you are trying to take your title, make it lowercase, and you use .include. You also take the search term and you say .includes search query to the lower. Let's take an example. For example, I have a product title called as men's clothing, okay, and now someone is searching for men's. Maybe they can also search it like small men's, like in the lowercase. So that's what we did, right? So whatever title we have, we are first converting it to lowercase, and then we are also matching the same thing with the lowercase. And if that guy includes that query, then we are going to filter that product, and based on that we are trying to get this response, filtered product, and this filtered product we are going to go and change here. Okay, so we are updating two things. We are updating the search query, and we are also updating the filter product here. Okay, and here we can basically save the. So let's see what's is bothering here, or maybe it's because we are in bracket and there is a high chance we have missed something, and this is what the miss. So we just needed to add this bracket, and that's pretty much it. So now we have created an action, and that action is already listened inside your feature. Okay, so we are not doing backend API call here. This is just a client side search. If you wanted to do a backend API search, then you have to do it inside the effect, because because effect is responsible for doing all your API calls. So this will be more than sufficient for us to do the magic. So now based on that, there will be few changes also inside your product company. So now we are not loading it from the select product, we are loading it from the select filter product. Okay, and we are already initializing this with the 20 product. So let's save this first change. Now the second change would be that we are going to have this input to be binded with some value, right? So here I will be using ng model, and here we can create a property called as search query, and we have this ng on model change. And if you want to use ng model, you have to make import of forms module. Okay, once you add all of this, let me try to create those property here in the bottom. So first thing first, protected search query, and again I'm not happy with the results from the AI, so this has to be signal now. Come on. So this is signal with an empty string, and just in the bottom we will have on search. We will get the query, and then based on that we are going to dispatch it. So let's save the changes, and whenever this is called, right, whenever ng model changes, we are going to pass in this search query, and based on this search query the filter will happen here in the feed, and based on the filter we are going to update this filtered product, and this filtered product is used over here to show all the products. So let's go back and let's do some search. When I search about men's, so all I can see this men's title is here, wherever you can see men's include. Okay, same thing I can search for cotton. If I do some search which is not there, so we can say no product available. If I go back again, if I refresh it, so I see loading product, and if I again search something which is not found, so we say no product available. And this is how we have successfully able to implement a client-side search for a product by using NGRX. Alright, so now what we have to do, right? So we are done with the product search, and we are done with the displaying of the products. Now we have to work on this profile page. Currently whatever data you see, it's all static. So now here we have to first do the API call. So for that, let's try to understand which will be the best API for us to use. So if I go in the user, here I have get a single user, and we can get it by a user ID. Okay, so the moment you fetch that data, this is what you will get in the response. If you do okay, they also have update, but we are looking more of this get request. Yes, exactly. So for example, if I copy this get user endpoint, go over here and search for user number 1. Okay, so there is no user found. I'm not sure why. Oh yes, because the query is users and my API is just user. Let's go back and change it to users, and here I can see, right, we get address, we get ID, username, password, name, and the phone number, which means we have to first declare this kind of a type. So let's go back to your Visual Studio Code, and in the profile we have this profile.ts. Here let's first create the service. So in the services folder we will create the API, and that is going to be a profile api.ts. Let's go here. I'm just trying to paste the profile API. This is how it will look like. It's a service. We have paste URL, HTTP, and we have this endpoint which we are calling. Here we don't have this type created, so let's go and create the type. So there will be a folder called as type, and in that we have profile type.ts, and this is how things will look like. So we have this user profile where whatever data you just saw on the API endpoint, I'm just creating all those models, equivalent models here. Let's go back and let's see if this is fixed. Yes, so this error is fixed because we have now user profile created. And this is what we are going to fetch by saying get user profile, and we are sending the user ID. And if you remember right, inside the auth state, we had this particular user ID stored. So if I go here in the store, in the auth feature, here we are also storing the user ID. And this was the reason I was telling you that once the login is success, or once we basically get the API call, we have to basically store that response. So over here now, whenever the login is success, we can also have this user ID, and we can store the user ID here on successful login. Because in the effect, we are already passing this user ID. If you remember, if in the login, if the login was success, if there is a payload, we are adding this from the payload what you got from the token. Okay. And this user ID will help us to fetch it in the user profile page. So now let's go ahead and create our store inside this profile folder. So we will have a store, and store will have first profiles.t, and this is how your store the action will look like. Again, I'm not going to type everything because now you already know what has to be done. This will just change to load. We can get rid of the profile. We can say load success and load failure. Now once the action is created, our second job is to create a profile feature.ts, and again I'm going to paste everything because now you are already aware how this has to be done. So first thing, you always create a profile state and you go ahead and initialize the initial profile state, correct? Now this we can remove because we changed the name to load, and we can get rid of the profile as a suffix, you can say, and that's pretty much. So here I'm just trying to explain you again that we create a feature, we give it a name to the feature, and we add a reducer. Reducer always needs an initial state, which we have already defined here. And if you are trying to load the product, so we make is loading as true. Once the loading got success, like your profile got loaded successfully, the API gives you success response, we say loading false, and we update the profile what you got from the API. And same thing you do it for here. If your action fails, then you say loading false and you update the error. Okay, people can get confused, so this is what the equivalent, right? If you have the same property name, so you can get rid of this. Now if you remember how Shashi we are loading the profile success and all of that, that all happens from this props. So when you load, right, you pass a property as user ID, and based on this user ID you fetch the profile. If the loading of profile is success, you are going to add the property as an argument called as profile, and this profile comes from the backend API, which you will be doing it inside the effect. So let's do that part now. So we have a profile effect.ts, and let me go ahead and grab the code for it. And again, I'm just going to explain the code because this is very repetitive task now for all of us. So first thing what you did, right, you create a profile effect, you inject first the action, and after injecting the action, you are going to basically also inject the profile API, which to the API call. And here you action, you do a pipe, and you check for a type that whenever there is a load get called. Okay, when the load action is called, you are going to make use of switch map to load, to basically access the argument which is passed to this prop called as load, right? So if you go again back to the action, you are passing a property called as user ID to this load, and that user ID you can access here as a switch map. So inside the switch map you have this user ID, and then you do the API call here on this line by saying profile API.get user profile for this user ID. And now in the pipe, if it is success, so you say hey profile action.load, and you pass in the profile what you got from this API call. So if you remember, right, this get user profile returns an observable of user profile that you are accessing here inside the map, and that profile you are passing it to this load success prop. Okay, but if there is anything went wrong, you also are trying to load failure, call the load failure with the error message, and that's pretty much it. And if you take a look, right, so now you have a functional effect created, and this will not just work out of the box, you have to go and define them. So this whatever state what you see, right, this store will be only used inside this particular section what you see, the profile. So for that, what I can do, I go inside the routes, and I will have here called as providers, and in the providers we have provide state. I can use profile feature, and in the provide effect I can say provide effect. Okay, let's go back, and here we can say import star as profile effect. Okay, and this profile effect will be used somewhere over here, and this profile feature you can basically go and quickly import, which is coming from the profile page. And that's pretty much it, which means now whatever state you have here during this feature and effect, that will be only loaded inside this profile component. Okay, now let's go to your component called as profile, and from here you can basically do the magic of store by saying private read only. You have a store, and you can inject the store. Okay, after injecting the store, you have to load the profile, right? So what we can say, protected read only profile, you can just select it from your feature, so that is your profile feature dot select profile. And you remember, right, we always make use of signal, so we can convert this into to signal, and we can get rid of the observable. Okay, that dollars. And we also have something called as loading state, so we can say protected read only loading, and this is coming from select load. Okay, and we can save all the changes. So let's go back here and let's see whatever static items we have, we can make it dynamic now, because all what we have put as static. Now what I can do, I can basically grab this, and what I will do here, I will say if it is loading, then it loads the profile, or else if it has a, or if it is successfully able to load, if it really has a profile, then you can basically save this change. So I'll just explain what I did here. If the loading state is true, we just say loading profile, or else we check if we have a profile data, then we show all the profile related information here. So we can just say as profile here, and maybe we can use it if I'm not wrong, or else I have another better option. There is also something called as @let, and you can just say your profile or user profile, so that we are not using the same name, and we can say something like this. And this is complaining because you have to use the value, so let's go and use the value here. So this thing will be updated. So user profile, I think we don't have something called as initial, but we have something called as name, and in this name I think we have to basically check something called first name. Let's go and check the property what we have. So we have name, and in that we have first name and last name. Yes, we can use that. So we have first name, and we want to just use the first initial of that. So user profile dot name, maybe we can use this because we know that it is not going to be undefined, so that's why. And another thing, again we can add another thing which is last name, something like this. So that will just take the initials. This is going to take the first name and last name, not just initials. This is going to be my username, so let's get rid of that, and let's see AI. Yeah, AI is helping me. So user profile dot username, then this will change to email. Come bottom, this will change to phone number, this will change to username again, and this is my address. So how this can be used, street, and this will be my city and zip code. I think that's pretty much it, I guess. Thanks to AI, plus I just pressed tab and everything was done already, because AI already know my property, like what all properties I have already created in this profile type. Okay, now let's go back and let's go here, and let's see if it's able to fetch it. So this is my profile, and what I see here is it is not able to load. Let's try to find out if there is any wrong in the API. If I go in the network, if I refresh, so it should basically call the API endpoint, but it haven't called. And the reason is pretty obvious, because once you come on this page, you have to call the API, and to call the API we have to rely on init. So let's have a on init method. This will basically, okay, let's go and do manually, or else it will add code anywhere else. So here we have a profile action. So let's see, we say profile action dot load, and here we are just trying to pass the user ID if I'm not wrong. And let's take a look. Oh wait, this is a product with, this is wrong. Profile action, and then we have load, and inside that we pass the user ID as 1. So this is currently static, just to see if it is able to fetch or not. Let's go back here. It is able to load the correct data. If I change it to 5, I can see the name get changed to a different, like this is Derek Powell, which means this is working fine now. But we don't need to do this right statically. So I think we have a store, and the store already give me that user ID. So again, let's do protected read only. This is my user ID, is going to be signal, and this comes from auth feature, and in the auth feature we have select user ID, and this user ID I'm going to pass it over here as this dot user ID. And as this is undefined, so we can basically put it like this, like, hey, I'm sure that there will be some value there, and there is a high chance. Let's see what happens now. So if I just added, okay, so this says null, which means initially when my user was loading this information, this was null. So let me log out first. I think now I know why it is this problem. So for that logout, I think we haven't implemented yet. So let's go back to login and try to do login manually. So let's go to login, and again I'm trying to do sign in, because now this will update the user ID. And now if I go to profile, this should load the correct product ID. But now the problem is when I refresh, can you see doing refresh, it basically resets my state to null value, and this is a problem, correct? Now we have to fix that problem, and I think that problem can be fixed by using local storage. So if you remember, we have a storage service. Let's go inside that. And just over here we need to have a get user ID, and this user ID should come from your local store. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we have a token. So let's get the token first, and to get the token we have a name. I remember we set a name which was NGRX store token, and if you are not aware where is this used, so let me show it to you. Maybe we can create a constant. Can you see now? This is what we have set the token as, NGRX token. Maybe we can change it to a TypeScript constant later on. But this is how we fetch the token. And if there is no token, if the token is not there, then we simply just return null. But if there is a token, then we have to do what we have to do. We have to extract, right? You remember, we can extract the payload. That's why we have created that extract token, and we pass in the token. Okay. If we have a payload, we just return the sub. If we don't have the payload, we return null value, and sub is nothing but your user ID. Okay, and let's save the change, and now let's go back and let's try to refresh. So it still says null because yeah, we have this service created but we haven't used it. So let's go in the profile and we have to inject the service. So private read only storage, and we have my storage. Right now what we will do here, let's try to break it down. We say const user id, and we will first try to get it from the store itself. So we will get it from the above first. So this dot user id. If you don't have a value here, because this is a high chance that this could be undefined, so we can say if you are not there, then I'm going to get it from the storage service. And in the storage service we have something called as get user id. Okay, and we check if we have a user id, then we are going to dispatch this action. Okay, so this is also one of the way, but if you are not aware, you do it like this, people can get confused. So this is what we can do basic. Okay, right now here we are trying to check it from here first. So if it is not present in the auth feature, then we can get it from the storage service. Okay, now let's go back, and now can you see, now I'm able to get the response. Even if I refresh, my data is there, it's all intact. Same thing for the product page. Even if you refresh here, that you always load it in the component, and that's where you have the value here. Okay, now if you again go back profile, I'm successfully able to load the user profile, and this is what was my requirement, to basically go on the profile, load it either from the store or load it either from the locals, and we are able to successfully show the user profile. So now our next focus will be to create the cart page, and we have to basically start using this action called as add to cart. So as you see, right, we to develop this add to cart, let's first get the understanding about this, what we are going to develop basically when we say we are doing add to cart, right? So basically all of this thing starts with this small button called as add to cart. Okay, and this is a very important feature to understand, and this will require some logical understanding as well, which I will be showing you during this video. So when we say add to cart, what really happens, right? So as we are using NGRX State Management, so whenever we are going to click to this add to cart, we are going to send a state, right? Basically when I send the state, we are going to dispatch an action. So a action will be dispatched, right? And currently if you take a look at this fake store API, when I go to this cart already, when I was trying to add some item here by doing this add to cart and post, put and everything, none of them was working because this is still not ready, I would say. And because of that, now I don't have to use this API thing. So what I will be doing for our add to cart, we will be using local storage to store the cart information. So whenever we are going to dispatch an action, so for that we will be creating some action first. So let me try to tell you what all action we will require. So first thing, we have to load the cart. So there will be a load cart, and basically this will have a load, and this will have load success as well, like whatever we have did till now. And there could be a load failure, like for example if something goes wrong from the local storage, then this will say that load was failing. Okay, and then we will have a add to cart, and same thing, we will have the state called as success and failure. So we will have a add to cart success and add to cart failure, right? So this is what action we am able to basically think. And there is also something called as remove from cart, right? We will also create this action when we want to remove some item. And what kind of prop we will pass here, we will just try to pass the product ID which we need to remove, right? And when we want to say I want to add to cart an item, so we will make sure that we are passing a prop as a product, okay, as a single product what we are passing. And we will make sure that if the user clicks two times, then what we will do, we will update the quantity. For example, if he is using the same product two times, then we have to make sure the quantity gets updated, right? And here we have this remove from cart, and then there is also called as update quantity. These all are going to be my action. And if you want to update the quantity, we just need to send props as product ID, and we need to also send the quantity as our number, right? So this is what I'm able to think of when I want to design my add to cart inside the NGRX action. And there could also be one more, and this is going to be my clear cart. Like for example, the user don't want any item to keep, then he want to remove all at once, so he can also have this action called as clear cart. But I don't think so this requires any props, because we are going to remove everything from the cart, and that's all. So now whatever I have talked here, maybe let's try to put them all into action by actually creating our cart action.ts file. But before that, we might need to get, okay, what is the cart item basically this will look like, right? So let me go ahead in the cart, and here we have to first specify our types folder. So we can put here type. Let me get rid of everything. Yes, so in this types we will create another type called cart type.tl, and this is going to be very simple because what the cart type only stores information of your product. So we can have this cart item, and this will have your product, and we already have a product type which is coming from product type, and another item what we will have is the quantity for this particular product, and this is of type, and this is what I'm able to think of. This is what I will have as a cart item type, right? Now let's try to design the action part what we have this. So my store will sit inside this, so I will put my store here, and first thing we need always create is cart actions dot. Let me go ahead and paste the code and try to explain it to you guys. So before that we have to do some quick import or quick fix and add all missing and make sure the imports are. Now this is what our cart actions look like. We are making use of cart action group. We always specify a source that this is going to be a cart, and we specify all the events which is required. So remember, right, first thing we have to load the cart, and that is going to be an empty prop because we just have to load. Maybe I can get rid of this suffix called as cart, right? And maybe yeah, that as well. I think rest all is okay. So we have a load success and load failure. If anything goes wrong when we are loading the product or loading the cart item, we can pass in some error, okay? But unfortunately we are not doing API call, so there is a rare chance that we have to, okay? But still I'm keeping this because if you guys are using API, if you want to modify this project by actually creating some API, so that you can make use of this action at that time, okay? But for now we have a load success. If it is load successfully, then we are adding a prop by actually passing the cart item, right? So that we can fetch everything, and that is going to be an array of cart. So we will have products and their content. So going back to add to cart, so this only takes a single product at a time, and this is going to add it. If it is success, then you basically create this product. You just add like, hey, here this is the success and this is what your product, and if it fails, you just pass in your error. So this all is very important basically to understand. So this thing will make more sense when we will create the feature part. Okay, understanding the remove cart is again easier. You just pass in the product ID which you want to remove from the cart, and updating the quantity is also easy. You just pass in the product ID with the quantity number, okay? And the clear cart is the easiest, which is just an empty prop which will remove all the items from the cart. Now let's focus on the cart feature. Like based on this action, we have to create a feature which will handle the state management for us, right? So let's go there and let's have a cart features dot t. The spelling is incorrect, so let's correct it. Cart feature, okay? And what basically we can wrong here. Okay, let's go back. So here we have to first define our type, correct? So to define the type, we will make use of this export type cart state, and here we will import the cart items, which is now array. So because this is going to be the items, right, which we are storing into the cart. Now you remember, right, we always initialize the state. So let me do that in the below. So this is going to be an empty array, loading is false and error is. Now let's take a look at how do we create the feature. So export cons cart features, and we are going to make use of create, right? Again, it's simple. First we define the name of this feature, and this is a cart, and then we specify the reduce. So reducer, we can create a reduce and we can import, and in this reducer we have to specify the initial cart state, and now we have to handle all the event. So first event is load cart, right? We have to load the cart. So we have on, let's import, we say cart action dot load. So whenever we are loading the cart, we have a state, and this state we will just, okay, let me like this, yes, and in this state we can restructure this state, and we just say that, hey, whenever the cart is loading, make sure that loading become true, okay? And rest we can keep it like that. Error, we don't need to specify null because it is already specified null in the initial cart, okay? So the second action is going to be a cart. So when I say on, so cart action dot load success. If it is able to load successfully, then what we will say, take my state, and inside the state we have something called as items. So take those items, and in that what you will do, right, you will restructure your state, which is this, and what you will do, you will take the items and paste it there, and loading will become false. So whatever item someone is passing as a prop, go ahead and update it in the particular state, okay? Now this is the load success. Now the load failure is, I think it's the easiest. What you do, right, you just destructure your state, loading becomes false, and you pass in the errors, and that's all. So now this was about your loading the cart and their success and failures. Now let's talk about one of the most important one, and that is add to cart. So before that, let me go ahead and just stop my IntelliSense because I don't want to use it anymore, because I want to explain you guys those step by step, like what exactly happens when you do add to cart. Okay, so here I will be using the same event, which is on. It has to be here, so on, and over here we have a cart action dot, here we say add to cart success. So we have to handle this particular event, and for that again we will have this state, and we can destructure, and whenever we do add to cart success, we have a prop called as product, right? And now here we can just say that, okay, so here we have the product. Now we can just check for, hey, if person is trying to add to cart and if it is the same product, which means if it is an existing product, so we need to check that. So if it is existing item, that we can check by state dot items dot, we can use of this find, and in the find we have item, and we can say item dot product dot id. If this id matches with the product dot id what user is trying to add, which means the item exists. Okay, then we can say, okay, if this is existing item, then what we'll do, we will return a state. Okay, we will return the state. We'll say, okay, destructure my current state and you need to update my item. So item will go like this. So we have this items, and then we will write a logic. So we have state dot items dot map, and in that we have this item, and now we are going to do, right, we are going to check for item dot product dot id if it is matching with my product dot id. If this is the case, then I'm using this ternary operator. If this is the case, then do one thing, you take the existing item what you have, and inside that existing item you have to update the quantity. So we have this quantity, and this quantity I want to say that item dot whatever the existing quantity is, please add one, because this is an existing product. Okay, or else what you can do, you can just pass in the same item back. Okay, let me try to put it down so that everything looks better. So this is the ternary operator. Like if this condition is true, then please do this. If it is false, then please keep this. Okay, so this was your first if condition. So if existing item, then please only go and increase the quantity, or else you will have another state, right? And or else if this is not the case, then please go ahead and return the existing state, and from that existing state you have to take your item, and what you can do, you can destructure the state dot items. Okay, please pass the current item, but with the current item you have one more responsibility, that you have to add a new product which is passed from the user, and in that product we also have something called as quantity. Please make the quantity as, okay, and this is what we are going to add it over here. So whenever someone do add to cart, this is what the logic is here, to basically increase the quantity if the user selects the same product. Okay, if it is existing, then please increase only the quantity. If it is not existing item, then please go ahead and take the existing item and add this new item with one quantity. Like this is just a start, right? And that's how you basically go ahead and create this logic add to cart success. Now let's take a look at the next one, and this is the simpler again, and this is going to be remove from cart again. So let me add that. So we have again cart action dot, we are listening to action called as remove from cart, and then again we will take the state, and in the state we can get the product id as our prop, and then that basically we can go and destructure again the state. All we have to change is the item. So item is going to be removed, right? Some item is going to be removed. So we will say state dot items dot filter. So we have to filter out the item. So we'll say item, and in that we will say item dot product dot id is not equal to product id what user has passed. So basically when we say remove from cart, so whenever this is called, we are going to remove that item from our cart, and that's all, and that's how you remove the item, right? So as simple as that. Now let's try to understand more on the update quantity. So this is also very logical, and this is also very nice to know like how this can be done. So again we get our action, so we say cart action dot update quantity. So we are listening to this, and again we will get our state, then inside that we will get the props what user has passed. So it has two props, one is product id and the another one is quantity, and we will do something similar here. So we have this, and inside that you first destructure the state, and now you are going to update your items. So item is going to be like, so what you do now, you first check if your quantity is greater than 0, right? If the quantity is greater than 0, if this is the case, so we can make use of the ternary operator here. So if this is the case, then what you do, you take your state dot item dot map. Inside that you have single item access. You will say item dot product dot id is matching with your product id, and again you will have a ternary. If this is the case, if this is really the case, then you take your item, okay, and in that item pass in this particular quantity which you want to update, right? Or else just return the same item, that's all. So this is one of the case, the one ternary operator. Or else the another ternary operator is that, right? Or else what you will do, you will say state dot item, and basically here if the quantity is less than 0, so you are going to remove that, right? So for example, you have two quantity. If you press minus one time, it becomes 1. If you again press that, so quantity becomes 0. If quantity becomes 0, then which means you want to do the filtering, and I think we already have a logic here on the top to do the filter. So we can basically copy this part and we can use it over here, so that this will going to remove that particular item because the quantity becomes 0. Okay, 0 means you want to remove that item, and that's all. And this is what we had a logic for your update quantity. Now the last and the easiest one I would say is the clear cart. So again you have on, you listen to action by saying clear cart, you're listening to this action, and then you have your state, correct? So this state you can update, and while updating you can restructure your state first. So this is your state, and you'll say, okay, if I want to clear all the items, so I'll say item as an empty array, and that's all. So this is going to update your item, right? And this is what the whole job of your cart feature was. And if you remember, right, I have told you this cart feature is a combination of both selector and your reducer. So now there is a high chance that we need some extra select, right? For example, you want to know that how many cart items you have to show it here. So if I go back to the browser, and over here, like whenever you add an item, so you also want to make sure that you have this number with you, like how many cart items we have, okay? Which means we need some extra selectors now, correct? And there is also a high chance that whenever I add all the items, so we also need to calculate the total amount, like what is the subtotal of whatever user has added to the cart. So we need to calculate those two. So for that we can create something new in this feature, and that is extra selectors. So we have something called as extra select, and I'll show you how this basically works. So you have this inside the base selector, you can destructure. Hey, you have select items, remember? So we have items, right? So you can directly say select item. We have this item, so you remember when we call feature dot select item, feature dot select loading, feature dot select error. So in the same way, inside this extra selector, you are trying to first call select item, okay? And now this, inside this, what you can do, you can create your own extra selector called as select cart count, okay? And if you want to create a selector, then again you say create select. See, it's so simple, and it is already imported on the top. If you see, right, whatever you see, I just press enter and it auto imports everything. Okay, so you have this create selector, so you pass in your select item and you take this as an callback. So now here you have items. Okay, so what you will do now, let's take it. So you have the select items, and then basically you're trying to access them by this item, right? And now here you say that, hey, I have the items dot reduce. You know that when do you use reduce? If you want to calculate the total or something like that. So in the reduce you will say, okay, so this is my total and this is my each item, right? When you use reduce, you first have the previous value and then you have the current, right? And the current value is nothing but your item. Okay, and now you want to do the total. So how will you do that? So you will just say total plus you have item dot quantity. That's all, right? So you have item dot quantity, like how many quantity you have. You're just trying to sum it all, and then you in the reduce you initialize it with the value. So you have to specify the initial value of this total, how it starts. Okay, if you don't know about reduce, you have to basically just go on Google and search about this, what reduce basically does. So over here I'm just trying to add up all the quantity to basically get a cart count, how many items I have in my cart, and that's all. Okay, so this is how I have created a new selector, extra selector called as select cart count. Okay, I need one more basically to calculate the cart total, right? So for that I'll say select cart total, and I want to create a selector. So I'll say create selector, and in that again I will pass in the select items which is on the top, and to access them I have this. So I'll say items, and now here I will say items dot reduce. This is the same logic to do the calculation. So inside this I will have total and I have single item access, and then I will say total plus item item.product dot price into item dot quantity, yes or no, and then we will initialize the total with 0 so that this guy can do the addition. If you guys are comfortable with for each loop, you can do with for each loop, but I think this is the best way that I think you should always go with reduce, because that's how the ES6 feature is, right? We just got this into ES6 where we can use this reduce to calculate sum of whatever you have inside your quantity, right, inside your item. So this is how I have created 2 extra selector basically to get cart count and get the cart total. Okay, so now the heavy lifting of feature is already done, because this was very important to make sure that every state is in sync, right? But now we are still missing one small piece, and that is our effect. Okay, now let's take a look at to manage all of these feature. How does the effects comes into a picture? Basically to handle your add to cart and also your loading of cart. Okay, so let's create that file, that is cart effect.ts, and here first thing first we have to say export const load cart. And now what I can do, I can now turn on my auto completion, and this can really help me now. So let's see. So we have load cart effects, and now I can say create effect. This is helping me. Wow. So we have this create effect, and inside that we have another one, and then we say action, we inject the action. Okay, so whenever I want to load the cart, so I'm loading this from my local storage. So let me store a constant called as cart storage key. So maybe I can give a good name here, NGRX store cart. Okay, and I will also need to inject one more item, and that is going to be my store. We can inject my storage service, right? And now what we can say, right, we just have to say return action.pipe, and inside this pipe, if you remember, we make use of type. Basically we check the which kind of action got loaded. So we know this is cart action dot load. So whenever someone is asking to load the cart, so at that time this guy will trigger, and we can make use of map here, and with the map let's write some logic here to load the data. Okay, so to load the data we'll say const cart data, and we need to load it from storage dot get item. Okay, and we get it from the cart storage key. So we are trying to fetch it from the local store, and if we have a data, right, if we have a cart data, then we are going to parse it, because whatever you store in local storage, it's a string, and then you need to convert the string into an object. So that's how you convert. And here you say that, hey, if it is loaded, then you say cart action dot load success. Okay, and as this is a functional one, so you go and tell here that this is functional as. Okay, that's what I do. So this is how you are trying to load the cart. Okay, and you have added this effect. Now we have to do the next item, and that is going to be your add to cart. And why I'm doing this, because you just have to trigger your another action. Okay, and that action is to add to cart, just in case if you want to use API. So that's why I'm trying to create this example in Vue, so that you can just change it with API by removing the local store. So here we say export const add to cart effect. Okay, let's see if it can help me. Yes, wanted. No, this is not wanted, because we are already handling it inside your user. So till here, okay, I'm not happy about this. Map the product. Okay, let this guy give whatever he will give, get complete, and then I will modify. Okay, so why I'm saying that we don't need this, because we have already handled this inside the reducer, and that's what the reducer is responsible for. Okay, so in our case, we just need we can get rid of this map completely. We just need to make sure that add to success, like we are handling this action, that hey, this is add to cart is called, this is add to cart is called. Okay, and when this is called, we just have to map the product. So we map the product. Sometime IntelliSense, I just always get confused because of the bracket. Okay, so inside that we can add your product, and we just call the action cart action dot add to cart success, and there is a high chance, or there is a very low chance that the error will cause, because we are just triggering an action, and that's all. And based on this, whatever this guy listens, we are just calling this add to cart. Now just in case if you want to change it with your API, then that you can do here. You can inject something here, and you can basically store it to the database, and based on that there is a high chance your API might fail. Then you have to use add to, like cart action dot add to cart failed, or add to cart something like that. Okay, so this was a very simple one, which we are just listening to this, and we are adding cart to success. That's all. Now very important one. Now this is a very important one, and what this guide. So we want to persist everything, right? Like whatever action happens, we need to make sure that everything is in sync. So for that I want to create a effect. So I'll say export const persist cart effect. So we are creating this effect, and to create that we say create effect, we open up the bracket, and inside that we open up again bracket, and then we say action, we need a storage, we also need our store here. So I'll tell you why we need our store. So we need a store here, and that store also can be injected, right? So we can inject our store. So we got these three things. Now we just say, hey, return actions.pipe, and exactly, see, can you see now what happens now? I'll tell you. So basically what we did, so we have this off type, and what this off type does, okay, let me first fix the import got incorrect, coming from Lucid Angular, which is wrong. This has to come from NGRX Effects and import. Okay, now let me explain you this. So what happens, this action basically listens all of this action type. So if any action like success, remove from cart, update quantity, or clear cart happens, this is going to trigger. Okay, and now what we will say is, we'll say with latest. Oh wow, this is, yes, exactly what I want. So we can make use of this operator with latest from. We can access the store dot select. We can call the cart feature dot select item. Can you see now this feature can access all of this? We have custom selector created, cart total, cart state, cart again, cart total. Okay, this is cart count, this is cart total, select error, select item, and select loading. So here we want to use the select item. Okay, so what we are trying to do, we are trying to merge the observable here. So we are basically have these two, and now we can make use of tap. I'll tell you why tap, because we just have to handle the side effect, and that's all. So what this guy will do, right, whatever change will happen, this tap, whatever the logic I will write, this will only make your item to sync with the local store. Okay, so whatever the latest cart item is, we are just going to take that and send it to the local storage. So here we have a tab, and we can discard the first one. So we just say comma, this will be discarded. So we have this array, and we can discard the first one, and we need to access only the second item. Okay, so this comma, what you see here, it is for all of this type, which I don't want to use. I just want to use the latest information with latest from, and that is my item. Okay, so this item, whatever I got, so this is what I wanted to do here. So this, just go ahead and make sure that your storage gets always in sync, is persisted. So whenever any change happens to this kind of action, this will take the latest information about your selected item and take that items and store it in the local storage, and that's all it does. Okay, and that's all it does. And I need to make this guy functional true, so let me also do that. Okay, and here I have specified that this is not going to dispatch anything, because this action will only here to handle the side effect. So whenever any action happens here, this will just handle the side effect, and it will just go ahead and store it in your local storage, and that's all. That's why I say dispatch false, it will not trigger any act. Okay, and this is what I had, and this one was very important, because this is all the magic of your effect, which makes your item in sync. Okay, now all of these things are done. Now our job is to basically go ahead and use this store inside your component. So now I can say that our NGRX part is done. Now we have to use all of this inside your cart component, and currently if you see that we haven't designed anything here in the template side. So let me actually try to add the basic one what I'm looking for. So there could be a div, and inside the div we have a h1, which basically tells about this is my shopping cart. And let's try to style this little different than what we had till now. We have a padding of 8, we give it a max width of 4xl and mx auto, so that it is in the center, right? And this is where our title is. So we can also style this a bit, add a class. Let's see if AI can help me here. Here it has to be text 3xl, font should be bold, text slate we can use, which is in black color kind of, and this is 900, this is what we have used, and we have a margin bottom of 8, and that's all. Now here what we need, just in the bottom, we need some state. Okay, and what kind of state? Like for example, first we need a loading. So if something is loading, then we have that loading state which is coming from your store. So here let's add a loading state, and we then another thing what we have is, if you have a length, if you have items dot length, then we need to show something. And the last part would be if your cart is empty. So if it is an empty cart, then we have to show something on the UI, right? So let's try to understand that. So we would have one if condition, then we can have another else if condition, and in the last we might have the else condition, which is the last one to basically show the empty cart. And this is where this guy belongs. So this belongs to this else condition, this item dot length belongs here. Okay, let's first design, or I would say let me try to grab this piece of code what I already have for empty state. So let me remove this and put it here. Okay, as we have this lucid icon, so we need to import lucid angular, and we need to import a shopping bag. So let's first add here shopping bag. Okay, and here in the bottom we can have protected read only icons. In that we can have shopping bag, and then this error just went off, right? And this is what we have to show the empty cart. Like we can say that your cart is empty, looks like you haven't added anything yet. You can click on continue shop, and here we use router link. So let me also import the router. Okay, and we also have a button, so let's also import here button now if there is any loading state, then what we can do, we have this if condition, and inside that we can add this loading, which is saying that loading cart, right? And here we need some property. So the property will basically come from my store. So for that, let me import my store, not import, basically this is inject. So inject store, and the store should come from Angular, not Angular NGRX/store. Okay, now here we know that we can get private, not private, this should be protected. So protected read only, this is my loading state, and that basically comes from two signals. So we will first have a two signal, and in that we can say this dot store dot select. We can have this cart features, so we need to import this, import it from cart feature, and we have this select. Okay, and this loading can basically go here. So if it is loading, if it is in the loading state, we can okay, although if you see, right, I'm not sure if we have used that is loading on a lot of places, because we are not doing any API call. But just in case, if you are doing API call, when you add item, when you remove item, so all this thing will come into picture, right? So currently whenever it is loading your state from the local storage, it might be true, but I think that is really fast, so it's very hard that you will be seeing this loading state. But just in case, we are trying to make it ready that if at all we try to integrate this with actual API, at that time this guy could be a useful. Okay, let's go back. Now here you need to have your cart item. So for that I need something called as items, and I would like to check it like items.length. Okay, something like that we need. So let's try to prepare that and let it get it from my store. So protected read only, this is what I wanted. We have items, and we are getting it from select item, coming from cart feed. And now if you go on the top, so this error. So now if I have any items here, so I want to divide it into two parts, right? So I will have a div, and inside that I have one div here which is for my quantities and all my product, and one will be for displaying of the order summary, which will have my total and subtotal. Okay, so the first one will have something called as grid. We have a gap of 6, and we make it divide into a col of 3 for the larger screen, right? So for the first div, what we will have a class, and this class basically helps me to divide it into two parts, right? And this is the part 1, which will be showing your cart items, and this is going to be the part 2, and this part will be responsible for showing me the order item, for example order summary. Okay, so here we have these two div, right? Now let's take a look like how this basically template code will basically look. So over here, right, if you take a look, maybe if you are not understanding this part, maybe I can talk more. So here if you see, we are dividing first it into 3 parts by col 3, and then internally we divide this into 2 parts. So 3 minus 2 only 1, so this is 1 part. Okay, so that's what we have did here basically. And now inside this we will be having this kind of a code, and let's take a look like what all of this is about. So now here we have our items, because we have it, the length is there, so we can use this item. We have a for each loop added, and we are tracking all the items. So these are my cart items basically, and just below that I have an image basically to show that hey, this is my product. Just in the bottom we are basically showing the product title, we are showing the category of the product, and we are showing the price. And for that we are also using a currency pipe. So let me go ahead and put the currency pipe. Okay, so this is just the template code which I'm trying to explain you all. Okay, and here I think I have some of icons as well. So I have plus, I have minus, and I have trash. So let me go ahead and also add them here. So we have a plus, have minus, and then there is one more which is trash 2. So let me also add that trash, right? And all this will be added here, then only it will. So let me add them here, plus, minus, and trash, and all the errors just right. Now let's come back here again. So this is what your information related to the product is, or I would say cart item. And then just in the bottom here you can see we have two, but this button is for plus, like if you want to increase the quantity. No, I think this is for delete. So we have this trash, which means it will delete the item from the cart. And here we have update quantity, which is going to decrease it by -1. This is my delete. And here we have an update, and this is going to update my cart, right? And I have not created any buttons here, so all this method what you see is still not. So now we need to go ahead and create all. Okay, so let's go in the bottom. So here we have protected, and here we can make use of store. This is a very wrong. So we have cart feature dot remove. Oh, this is incorrect. We should be using action, not feature. So here we have cart action that remove from cart. Then we have one more protected on update quantity, and here we are trying to dispatch cart action dot update quantity by passing the product ID and quantity, right? I think this is the two things we have, and there is one more which is for clearing the cart. So let me also add that method here. So on clear cart, and here we can dispatch this action to clear all the items from the cart. Okay, let's save, and yeah, everything is compiled and we all agree. So let's go here and try to again understand what this section is. So basically we are calling, right, this on remove. We are passing the product ID, and this will remove that particular item from the cart for, I think, removing it. And then we have increment and decrement. Okay, cool. Let's try to see it on the UI, and maybe then things can make more sense. So let's go on the UI, and here if I try to add any item, so it is still not working because we haven't worked on this part. So let's try to basically also call your dispatch whenever we click on this button. So that is basically present from your product cart. So if you go inside your product cart component, here we have created a add to cart output, which means wherever we are using this selector, there we can have this particular event, output event, which is add to cart. And now for that we have to go in the product page. So let's go here, and we have a selector. So we can make use of this selector. We say add to, okay, and with the add to cart we can call a function here which we have not yet implemented. So over here we can say that on add cart we get this particular event which is going to be our product, right? And now here let's call this protected on add to cart, and we are going to dispatch. So this is basically coming from my cart action, and I can say that add to cart, and whatever product you get, right, you are basically trying to send it to this particular store. Okay, so whatever product you get, you are passing it to the cart action, which is calling this action which has a property called as, right? So that's what you're trying to pass here. And now whenever you execute this action, something will happen, right? So this will happen, what it will do, it will go ahead and update this item in the cart, correct? Now but what happens, right? So whenever you click, if I click here, click here, click here, can you see the quantity never changes because we have this stat, and that is present inside your head. So let's go inside your head, and over here let's take a look. Where is that static 10? It is over here. And now what we can do, we have to update, right? So to update this, let's have your store wired as well. So now we have a store, and now we have to get this protected read only cart item, right? And cart item counts, you can basically get it from store. So we have store.select, incorrect. What we need here is we have a feature, right? Cart feature dot select cart count, and over here if you want you can basically convert it to signal. So that to a signal, so we can make use of to signal, and inside that you can put it like this. And I think there's also a way where you can put it as your initial value, which is as 0, so that this is not undefined, and you can make use of 0. Okay, now if you go on the top, you can get rid of this count, and you can just say cart items count, okay, and save the change. I think now the thing is break. See what is that? I think just now we added, oh, maybe the reduce is not able to, because there is something undefined, because whenever I'm trying to select this cart count, I think this got failed and we didn't add any item here. And this could be because of that we have created the effects, we have created the feature, but we haven't defined them. So what we can do, right? So let's take a look at your routing where you need to provide this effect and your feature. So if I go inside the routing, first of all, I don't want that to be inside my app config, because I'm not going to share it across my application. I just need it with some limited places. Like for example, my login and register component don't need this cart state, correct? So what I'll do, right, I'll go inside here, and maybe this is the right path for me to make use of that provide, because this provide can be used at this level. So here we have this provider which has the provide state, and we also have a provide effect, right? So we can put these two and we can add. So let me import this cart feature over here, and for this cart effect, what I need to do, Simple. I say import star as cart effect, and that's pretty much. And let me save the changes and let's see if everything works fine. This is okay. Let's go back, and now can you see I have this count as 0. If I click on this add, if I click again add, so I want to see that this gets changed to like the number of what we have. And if I go, okay, nothing has been shown here at the moment. Let me take a look why. Also let's inspect element. Let's see if anything goes wrong in the, okay, let's go back. Now whenever we are adding, I want to dispatch. I'm not sure if I have did that, so let's go again in the product component, page component, and over here I'm trying to click on this add to cart, and this add to cart should be called whenever this button is clicked, which is the add to cart, and I'm calling on add to cart, which is, let me also confirm if my core component we created is having the proper output. Yes, it basically takes this output, and we need to make sure that this is also called here, and see, this is what I have suspected. So here whenever I am trying to click, right, so when I say click, I want to do that, hey, add to cart, I want to dot and then emit the particular product, whichever is clicked when I click on this button. And now this should work. Let's see. Let's go back again, and if I click on this add, can you see one item got added? If I again click on this add to cart, I see 2 items, and if I again click on the same product, I see 4 items, not because I have clicked it 2 times. And now here, if you can see, right, I have my shopping cart, and here I can see the decrement, increment, and this deal. Okay, and this all are coming from here, which I was trying to explain. So let's go again back to this, and this is what this section is all about. So here you see button as remove with the trash icon, then there is a decrement, and then there is a quantity, and then there is an increment, and this is what this section. So if I click this, can you see even my cart count also gets changed? Can you see it is getting changed based on, if I remove this, then whole 7 item removes, and I only left with 3 items. Now here I have my cart item. Now on the right I want to show my summary. To show the summary, this is what the section I will be using. So over here, let me go ahead and code snippet here and try to explain you. So here if you see, now this guy needs a cart count, and this guy also need a cart total. And if you remember, right, we have already mentioned that all of this information is there inside our store. So let me go back and try to add them here. We can say protected read only cart total, we can give an initial value, and same thing can be done for my cart count, which is coming from cart feature.select cart total, cart feature.select cart, and I can save all the changes. After saving everything, let me try to explain you. Have here, it's pretty straightforward. We have a title here for an order summary. Just in the bottom we have a subtotal, which tells that how many items I have and the amount for that particular item, and we are using the currency pipe. Just below that we have this shipping, which is always free. If you want, you can also change this, like if your price is less than $100, then you can say that there will be $10 shipping fee, or else you can keep it free if it is more, but maybe I can keep that to you guys, what logic you want to use. And just in the below we have this total, which basically tells the cart the currency pipe, and we have a button called as proceed to checkout, which we are not going to implement because this will require us to integrate this with some kind of a third party application. For example, if you want to integrate some payment gateway, so that part can be done once you have this proceed to checkout button. Maybe we can take, or maybe we can create a separate video on that where we can utilize this button to do some checkout. Okay, and then we have a button here which basically clears all the cart, and this function we have already implemented below, that whenever somebody clicks, we are going to dispatch it this new action which is going to call your clear. Now let's go back and see how the UI will look. So again, if I click on continue shopping, click on add to cart 3, 4, and I add this one more time, I can see now 5 quantity here, and here on the right you can see the order. Here if I add anything here, can you see all my state are in sync, right? If I remove the item, the price gets again removed. Can you see now I have 2 items. If I press this, this becomes 1, and if I again press this, my quantity becomes 0, and if it is 0, which means we have to do the remove action. And that's how it removes the, and this is what I was actually trying to show you when I was implementing the cart feature. And here we have an option called as clear cart, and if you click on this, all the item from this will get removed. So if you click this, everything gets removed and your cart is empty. Click back on the continue and you can do more shopping. Click, and do more shopping, and you can, okay, now the problem is, right, the refresh. The moment you refresh, right, it basically removes everything from the cart, and there could be a high reason that whenever we are storing it, here can you see now we have the NGRX store cart, which we have already created. I think I can delete this one. Yeah, so this is what we already have, but I think we are not able to fetch it when we do the refresh, right? Because I can see already we have 2 items here in the local store. Now there could be a problem that whenever we are trying to call, whenever we are coming on this load page, we have to call that function to load my card. So one idea would be that if I come on this page, then I can make use of NgOnInit here. But what will happen when I do NgOnInit? I can call this load. Let me tell you the problem first. Let me show it to you. So you guys can say that, hey, what about we can use an NgOnInit, go somewhere over here and use NgOnInit. And here we can load the cart item. So to load it, we have to just dispatch this action, right? And you can say, hey, whenever someone refresh the page, we can load the item again. And this load items, if you go in the effect, it always fetches the information from your local storage, right? Now, I think you guys are right. So if I refresh this, can you see now? I got my cart item here always, so it's there. So this is what basically you guys can do. But if you ask me what would be the ideal scenario to do it, I would have loaded it inside my different component. Like for example, here I have 2 items here. Currently I'm on my cart. If I go back to this product, and now if I refresh, see what went wrong here. Can you see the quantity here becomes 0, but ideally we have here 2, right? If I go back again, it always shows 2 now, because hey, we have 2 items, and this header is only updated when you are on the cart, and this is a bug, right? To fix this bug, what we can do, we can grab this logic of NgOnInit. Let's go back to your cart team, and we can grab this logic, and let's go inside your main layout.ts. So we have this main layout here, and we need to use this NgOnInit here to load this particular card. Let's add this private read to put all the missing. I know this problem because this always takes from React, which is right now. This is perfect. And now if I save all the changes, and now if I go back, so here I am on the cart page. If I refresh, I see I have 2 items. If I go back again on the home page, on the products page, if I refresh again, I can still see the 2 items, and this is what I want, which means whenever my main layout loads, that layout is going to do the load of cart, and it is going to update my counter here. And just in case if I remove the item from my local storage, so you can see your item will get updated on the. So if I go back here and remove this NGRX store cart, if I delete this, and if I refresh, my database is getting cleared basically, and I can see 0 items even. Now if I again add, let me also do one more round of demo. Got 3 items. Let's refresh. It's still there. Let me increase the quantity. It's still there. Let me go back to the product page and refresh, and can you see the data is still. And let's do the filtering, see if it is work. Yes, it works as well, and you can add to cart from here as well. Okay, so in this way we have successfully able to also implement our cart feature. Now there is one important feature is still remaining, and that is related to your authentic, right? Now here if I tell you, right, I only want to show this page if the user is authenticated. So currently if I go back, if I and I don't have this logout also implement, I can also implement this logout, because even if you click, nothing happens, right? So now we have 2 responsibility to finish. First thing, that if you click on logout and if you come back to this product page, you should not be able to come, because you should be authenticated first, then only you can, right? So let's do one thing at a time. So let's first implement the logout. For the logout implementation, let me first clear everything. Let me close everything. So here if you remember, right, we have created a store here which was for authentication. Like we have this auth action, and over here we can create 2 more events. First is logout and another one is logout success. Okay, failure is not required because I'm not going to do any API call as such, so I think this 2 is more than enough. Now what I will be doing, I will be creating a effect here. Okay, so this is my login, if this is my register, and let me create one more port const logout effect. Yes, good, this looks good, and yes, this is what I wanted actually. So here I have my actions which I have injected, my storage, router, and the ngToast service. Here what happens, right, whenever there is any event of type is logout is triggered, then I'm going to go ahead and remove my token. I'm going to navigate the user to the URL which is /login, and I can create a toast which says that logout successful, and I will trigger this action called as logout success. Now what will be the responsibility of this logout success, that this is going to also change the state for me. So if I go in the auth feature and let me go in the bottom, and here I'll say on, if my logout happens, I want to make sure that, hey, I don't need this, I need logout success. So let me have this, and that's it. So maybe I can get rid of this, it's not required. This is important because now once your logout is success, you have to revoke your token by saying null. User ID, you have to make it empty, and is loading is anyway false, right? So this is what was required for us. Now if I save the change, now you remember your logout is present inside the header. So you go here and you call your method called as logout, and you're going to dispatch auth action, which is log. So auth action.logout will be dispatched when this button is clicked. Button is somewhere over here. Let me go ahead and have a click event, which is logout, and save the change. Let's go back, and here now if I click this button, you can see I get logout successful and I came on the login page again. Now if user will try to access things from here, he should not be able to, because you are not an authenticated user. If I go to this profile, can you see profile is not loading because profile has broke, because you don't have any token and you don't have any user ID. And if I try to refresh, there is a high chance that this is going to fail. Okay, nothing is getting called. Can you see? Because we don't have any to load the profile. So how we can fix this? So there is something called as guard. We can basically protect our routing. So for that, let me tell you, right, how you can basically protect your route by creating a guards in Angular. Okay, and this guard basically works based on a boolean. So we have this core component and we can create a new file, auth guard.ts. So over here we can put const auth guard, and this is going to be a can activate. We can say can activate fn, something new, right? And then you can have this, and here you can access your store first. So we can say const store, and you can do the injection here. So you can say inject and get your store. Okay, now what you need to do, you need to get your router as well, so that if the router is allowed to route, then only it will go, or else it will route it back you to the login. So this is my router, which will help me for some routing. Okay, now what you need, right? You need something from your auth state which tells that, hey, this is an authenticated user. So now what I'll do, right, let me go to your auth feature and let me try to find out, is there any state which I can use that this is authenticated? I think this is the one which I can use. So basically what I can do here, right, so we are trying to initialize this with a token. What I can do, right, I can directly go and say const get stored token. I'm just trying to use a function here, and this is going to return null or this, right? And based on that, I'm directly going to say local storage.get item. This is my token, and what I can do, I can get rid of this null and I can initialize it with the local storage. So if it has a token, then it will be initial. Okay, now I need to expose a selector. To expose the selector, maybe I can create a specific selector here, and you know, right, how to create a selector now. You just need to say here extra selector, and here you can say select token, and then all you have to do is you have to give it a name. So select is authenticated. Okay, and here you can access the state. So basically this is wrong. We have to say create select. I think my AI is not yet updated, so we can say this is my select token, and you can access the token like token, and I can say that, hey, if I just put this double negation, if the token is there, it will return true, or else it will return false, right? And based on that, this select is authenticated will be published with some value, right? So I have created a selector which we can use now. So what I will do, let's go back to your auth. So that's why I have created that store to basically fetch this is authenticate. If I go back here and I can say done, and now as we have this store dot select, again I think the store got wrongly imported from Lucid React, correct? Need to get this, even the router is incorrect. Okay, let me fix this. This has to come from NGRX and this from /router. Okay, now I can use store dot select, and we have a auth feature dot select is authenticated, and this is coming from your new selector what you have created. And now here I can make this is an observable, so you can make use of pipe, and inside the pipe you can have a map operator, and this map operator basically can access the is authenticated variable, right? And now here you can basically do the check that, hey, if is authenticated, if it is not authenticated, then you will navigate the user by this /login. Okay, and always a good way is to basically create. Okay, so we can say router dot create URL tree and then send it back, so that it also removes the history. Okay, so you don't need to have that false, right? So you can directly return this to the user that, hey, go to the login path, or else you can return true. So this is what we just now added. So this custom selector is very important for us to basically check if the user is authenticated. Or now what we will do, we will take this guard and use it inside our routing. So here if you see, we have already created this can activate, and inside this you have to just tell your auth guard. Now whenever your people will try to go to this route / product, it will basically run this guard. Like if user is trying to access any of this route, before that this guard is going to protect. Okay, now let's check that thing in action. So currently I am not logged in and someone is trying to access my card. So can you see now it again came back to the log. Or maybe we can also show some toast there just to notify the user that hey, you are not authenticated. So we can say const toast inject ng toast with, and over here we can run the toast.info, please log in to continue. Okay, go back, and again if I try to go to card, can you see, please log in to continue. I got this. So that user has to first log in and then only he can access all this route. Okay, so now he is able to see your product route, he is able to see the profile route, and he is also able to see your cart route. Okay, and if you log out, then everything gets removed, the state get refreshed, and then you cannot able to use any of the routes from the top. So there you have it. So we have gone from complete blank slate to creating this reactive application by using Angular and NGRX. We have covered a lot of ground today, like setting up your store, dispatching those actions, and handling those effects. And if you have managed to follow along, then you guys will have now architectural pattern about using a Redux, and this can be also used in your real projects now. And just in case if you guys got stuck at any point during this tutorial, then don't worry, I will be providing the GitHub source code inside the description box, so do check it out. And if you like that repo, then please give it a thumbs up. And if this video has clarified your state management for you, then please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. And if you want to see such more advanced video, then please consider subscribing to the channel, because I will be also working on a project where I'm going to convert this NGRX store to leverage the signals, and we have a new state management provided by the same NGRX team, and that is NGRX Signal Store. And if you guys also want to learn that, so do let me know in the comment section. That will highly motivate me to come up with that video as soon as possible. So thanks for coding with me. I will see you guys in the next one.